Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. And it's Tom Dabertin, and it's the morning call. And it's great to be here with you this morning on a Wednesday morning. Little cold, but it's going to get warm later in the week. And this is my last broadcast from Florida this week. Actually, I should say tomorrow is, because I'm doing the show 2 days in a row. So you get me 2 days this week. What a bonus. But we will be headed back north. And we will endure the weather with you starting Saturday night. So my days in Florida are being cut short. And Lynette, you won't have to worry about sending me the Zoom link starting next week. So there you go, an added bonus for Lynette. Let's talk about traffic and weather. We've got lots to talk about. I do want to mention at 7 a.m., Lake County Circuit Court Judge Marissa McDermott is going to call in. And we're going to talk about the scams that have been going on. I know a lot of listeners have been getting text messages about amounts that you owe, and it's a big scam, and there's no one better than a sitting circuit court judge to talk about these scams. So I look forward to having Judge McDermott on at 7 a.m., and she's going to talk about the scams. We've got to talk about what's going on in BP oil, Iran, and everything else, but let's first go to traffic and weather. Traffic looks pretty good this time of the morning. Northwest Indiana, I-65, 8094, the toll road, Klein Avenue, all look great. Go across the line. Skyway, Bishop Ford, I-57, the Dan Ryan all look good as well. And really, right now, it's not bad going through the city of Chicago until you get up to toward O'Hare Airport on the Kennedy. That's really the only tie-up right now at the 6 a.m. hour. So things look pretty good. Let's talk to Lynette about traffic, about weather. Good morning, Lynette. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 24 degrees with highs of 44 and lows of 32. It's going to be breezy with flurries early this morning, mainly cloudy and not as cold. And then later tonight will be mainly cloudy with a little rain late in the afternoon. And then Thursday we'll be having highs of 53 and lows of 42 with a little rain in the morning, otherwise clouds yielding the sun. And then Friday we'll be having highs of 67 and lows of 39, and it's going to be warmer with times of clouds and sun.
I understand that you got to experience one of the added bonuses of the old studio building this morning. So you got stopped by a train, right?
Yep.
And now, was that north or south? There's tracks both north and south. And once in a great moon, over the years, it's been difficult to get into WJOB because you're blocked at both north and south. But my guess is this morning was probably north.
Yep. I got a little lost because I missed a few turns. It was pretty snowy on the ground.
Yeah, it's again, it's one of those things I remember. This has to be about 15 years ago or so. No one could get to the station. So there was no way to get there. There was a train at the south, just north of 165th. There was a train at the Norfolk Southern, and they didn't move. And for about an hour, there was just nobody that could get to the station. I mean, it was impossible. So there you go. We've got some callers, so let's go to the callers. Good morning. You are on the air. Oh, and by the way, folks, should mention, at 8 o'clock, we have the Munster Chamber of Commerce show coming up. And then at 8:30, I think I'll be back unless they're working on the phone lines because they're going to install the new phone system today. So that may preempt us at 8:30. Just to let everybody know. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes. So you're going to be double dipping next week on Wednesday and Thursday.
This week. So I'm going to be on today and tomorrow, and then I'm going to head back up
this week
on Friday. And I will be in the studio starting next Wednesday. And by the way, I'll mention this a couple of times. It'll be either next Wednesday or the following Wednesday. Bishop McClory is going to be coming on. I've also spoken to Barb Regnitz, who is running for U.S. Congress against Frank Mervan. She's going to be coming on in the next couple of weeks. Mayor McDermott is going to come on. And I've got some other guests. So there'll be plenty of guests coming on in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for details. Go ahead.
Well, I hope that people out there have a spare $5. Send it off to Lake Village to help out with the recovery. But if it's you got $50 or $5,000, that'll do too, because I'm sure they they could use every dollar they get at this stage of the game. Old Jess,
A lot of damage, no doubt about it.
Yep, shocking to see, especially when it's so close to home. But in any case, old Jess Jackson, he's dead and buried now. So, the effort to make him sound like some kind of angel is ridiculous. I mean, there was even pressure to have him laid in state at the Capitol building in D.C. The only thing that surprises me, they didn't contact the Pope to have him declared a saint. But his record ain't pretty. If he were a white guy, a white Republican especially, they wouldn't be talking about him that way. But right now, anti-Semitism is a big point of conversation. Well, old Jess, he got on board that one a long time ago when he referred to New York City as Jaime Town. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. And I will say, Jesse Jackson was a controversial figure. What I found very interesting was the fact that the Jackson family, however, came out after the funeral and complained about some of the political comments that were made during the funeral by former presidents. Right. I thought that was quite interesting. I also thought it was interesting that Stratton, who just won the primary in Illinois and is probably assured the victory as the next U.S. senator, was claiming that that Jackson had endorsed her, and he had not. His family came out and said he had not endorsed anyone at the time of his death, and she went and ran ads and claimed that he had endorsed her. So his controversial life lives on in his death.
I understand that the Jackson family had asked all these figures who were invited to the event to not do politics, strictly a religious event, but that was all ignored. But old Jess, I mean, for example, to give you an idea, his appetite for communist left-wing tyrannies refer to communist Cuba as marching toward democracy and peace. Long live President Castro. He was very sympathetic to the communist Sandinistas out of Nicaragua, claiming they were doing a better job than the American founding fathers. He really loved African tyrants.
I'm not sure that I can just totally blame Jesse Jackson. So I mentioned last week, I'm just finishing it up, the book, The Brink, about the 1983 situation that Mont Hanley and I talked about before, where we were on the brink of nuclear war between the Soviet Union and the United States. And there are a couple of interesting chapters in the book. I always thought that the Catholic Church played a very strong role in the downfall of communism, and it did, with John Paul II. But the fact is that in 1983, John Paul II actually told Reagan that he disagreed with him about ratcheting up the pressure on the Soviet Union. And the U.S. Conference of Bishops, U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops, was a primary supporter of all the nuclear-free movement rallies in the United States, which it ends up were largely organized by the KGB. So,
right.
Religious organizations for many years have taken a very liberal slant when it comes to a lot of issues. And there's, again, there's an example from 40 years ago where we almost came to, the brink of nuclear annihilation. And religious were taking, again, certain sides. In fact, it wasn't just the Catholic Church. It was the, Conference of Methodist Ministers, the Lutheran Church. They were all supporting the nuclear-free movement. And it ends up from documents that were released after the fall of the Soviet Union that the KGB was largely behind organizing all those events. And all the churches were out there saying, yes, we need to disarm. We need to extend an olive branch to the Soviet Union. They're good people. They're, good, caring people. And it ends up, it was all a ploy.
Yep. I wish, the Christians have really dug themselves a hole, whether it be Catholics or Protestants or whatever. When they decided back in the 60s to start getting involved with politics, and in fact, preaching their politics from the pulpit kind of thing, because at least in the Protestant circles, mainline Protestant circles in which I grew up in, the idea was that partisan politics, that was the province of the layman. The job of the clergy was to preach the gospel, period. And as far as I'm concerned, by using the pulpit to advance the partisan political views was blasphemy. And the mainline Protestant churches are dying on their feet. I grew up in the Episcopal Church. I mean, they're a disaster zone. But the mainline Protestants, like the Lutherans, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, et cetera, they all jumped on board that we got to get involved with politics, and they have paid dearly in terms of empty pews. And what I see in the Catholic side is you have a lot of the Catholic, especially the Catholic bishops, they've jumped into this political stuff too, and it will only damage Christianity in the Western countries. And it's just,
I agree with you that they too often jump in on the wrong issues. For example, the Catholic Bishops' Conference has taken a number of stands about everything from immigration to a number of domestic issues. They were opposed to shutting down the international aid organization that we found out was basically paying for things like a transgender Sesame Street in Iraq and things like that. And I agree with you. I think sometimes that the political views damage the church to the point that a lot of people steer away from going to mass and going to services. And I agree. I think that they need to stay out of it. Mad Mac, for example, has called in before, and he's very, very much pro-life. And he's pointed out that the Catholic Church, will scream and holler about abortion, but then will be in basically lockstep with some of the same organizations that fund abortion. So it's problematic. Exactly. Let me ask you this, Walt. Coming closer to home, are you concerned about the lockout at the BP oil refinery in Whiting? After all, that refinery produces gasoline and fuel, jet fuel for 9 states in the Midwest. It has a major role in the price of gasoline. Are you concerned?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I gas up my car too, and the price of fuel, other than for taxes, and of course the taxes vary greatly. I mean, California's through the roof on taxes when you buy a gallon of gasoline. But I mean, it's just another hit on the supply situation, and it's I don't think that refinery's been there for an awful long time, and I don't think people understand that it's what they do has implications for the international marketplace in terms of the price of gasoline. There's already pressure over
refineries. It's one of the largest refineries in the nation. It produces a massive amount of gasoline and jet fuel. And again, it supplies the entire Midwest. And BP basically decided to push for more than 100 job cuts, as well as nearly all positions giving up bargaining rights and taking pay cuts. So it sounds to me like we're in for a very long fight, one that couldn't come at a worse time. So I'm very concerned about that as an issue, and I'm sure there are plenty of other people that are as well. And then, of course, when you add that in, we have the NIPSCO rate increases and another round of NIPSCO rate increases. So, it's not going to get better anytime soon, and it is very problematic with the war in Iran. Excuse me. Now the strike at BP, the increased NIPSCO prices, just a real problem. It's something that we need to come up with some solutions, no doubt about it. Hey, Walt, thanks so much for the call. We've got some other callers, so we're going to move on. Thank you again. 845-1100 is the number to call. We've got additional callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom. I read your post last night about scams.
Yes, and I saw your response, but it was so late I didn't want to call. So,
yeah, a friend of mine, believe it or not, got scammed for $140,000. Now, we know the scam is going on. They call it being catfished or the romance scam. And they just kept taking his money. And what the woman had said, and it's not from the United States, it's overseas, and I don't want to mention the country. I don't want to defame the whole country. But the woman told my buddy that she has an inheritance, and she needs money to get it out, gold bars. And he gave her money to come here, and it just kept going on till he lost 140 grand. And then I had another friend was telling me that his buddy was giving money to it, but he stopped at $500. And I know Judge Marissa McDermott's coming on the phone. We know the scam, but what are we going to do to fix it? Now, let's move on to this SAVE Act. Let's move on to the mental block that people have about
SAVE Act. And again, I just want listeners to know at 7 o'clock, Judge Marissa McDermott is going to call in. We're going to talk about these scams that are going on. What's interesting is that she's not immune to the scams like some people might think. She actually got a scam request just the other day herself, and she's going to talk about that. And I got a scam request the same day, actually. I will just mention mine came on Sunday afternoon, and it said it was from the Indiana Department of Revenue, demanding that I pay some money, that I provide a routing number and my bank account. And when I looked at where it came from an area code in Arkansas. So I responded and I said, yes, I'm sure the Indiana Department of Revenue uses people in the hills of Arkansas to make collections for them on Sunday afternoon. And whoever it was responded and basically gave me the old FU response, and I didn't get anything more. But people are using these. We think that all these scams are from overseas. There are plenty of U.S.-based scams as well, is my point. So, but we're going to talk more about that with Marissa at 7 o'clock. Go ahead, talk about the SAFE Act. Absolutely.
Oh, I think we lost him.
You got to call back. We lost you somehow. So MX, please call back. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, and we'll be right back.
Looking for a hands-on career with real opportunities? Plumbers Local 210 is hosting an open house and Indiana statewide apprentice competition on March 18th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 2901 East 83rd Place in Maryville. Come see live demonstrations and watch top apprentices from across Indiana compete while showcasing the skills that power our infrastructure. Explore career paths in pipe fitting, welding, and HVAC service. For more info, call 219-942-7224 or email Shauna at plu210.org.
Tech Credit Union supports the essential role of union labor in building strong communities. That's why we offer hassle-free banking, financial empowerment, and a commitment to your success. Save for the future, handle life's challenges, and trust a partner that stands by hardworking union members. Tech Credit Union, the better option for you and your money. Visit techcu.org or call 800-276-8324. Tech Credit Union, supporting union families every step of the way.
Summer's coming, and Deep River Water Park is taking applications for all positions. We have jobs both inside and out for all ages that offer great benefits. Free admission on your day off for you and a friend, free uniforms, paid training, make new friends, flexible scheduling, and more. To apply, just go to deepriverwaterpark.com and you're on your way to a summer of rewarding fun.
Deep River Water Park, it's simply splash-tastic.
Introducing Powers Health, a health system with a new name and a strong legacy of caring for families in our community. One with a tradition of advanced specialized services and a vision for the future. One with a commitment to medical excellence and compassionate care. Everything we do, everything we believe, Powers Health.
we're back. And Lynette, I understand that MX is on hold, so I think we should be able to complete that call now.
Let's see if this is him.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom. Boy, is it? Hey, so much for that scam. I'll say it again. My buddy got it for 140 grand. But let's move on to the SAVE Act and to the mental block that's going on with the people around here. They'll say, well, I go to the polls and I have to show my license and my identification. And I try to tell them yes. But if this is not federally mandated, states like California, Illinois, they will go away and you won't need an ID and you could go in there and vote 10 times. If this is not federally mandated that you need an ID, a lot of liberal states will not require an ID, and that's a form of cheating. And the Democrats right now are grabbing for straws, and they need to cheat. They really do, because the people have caught on to the Great Society program a lot and found out that, you know what, this program is not working. Now, we go to...
Let me just give some numbers. So according to an NBC poll, 96% of Republicans support the SAVE Act. 71% of Democrats support the SAVE Act. 86% of independents support the SAVE Act. There aren't too many things overall. It comes out to 80-some%. There aren't too many things in this nation right now that more than 80% of the population agree on. I don't understand how all the Democrats can be basically in lockstep in opposing the SAVE Act. It just seems like it's such common sense that the average person would, tell their congressman or congresswoman, hey, I'm in support of this, or tell their senator and say, I'm supporting this. I don't have a problem with it. And I think there's, again, we've done it in Indiana for years. I don't know when it started that you had to show your ID, but it's been a long time, right? I mean, it's been many years that you've had to show an ID when you go to vote. What's the big deal?
And that's the mental block. But I put the SAVE Act, how they voted yesterday, 51-48. Now, that's just to bring it to the floor of the Senate. They need 60 votes to pass this. But the mental block is you keep hearing people say, well, I show my ID. Yes, you do in Indiana. But if it's not federally mandated, a place that is a total disaster like California, where Newsom is a governor, they'll just go in there. I could go in there and vote 10 times without an ID. This is where the mental block comes in.
Don't reach so far. Don't reach so far, because Illinois is just as big a disaster, and it's right next door. And by the way, J.B. Pritzker is being touted repeatedly as a possible candidate for president or vice president. So he's right next door, and he's probably going to get reelected because the people in Illinois yesterday once again nominated Darren Bailey as the gubernatorial candidate for the Republican nomination. And Darren Bailey looks like a bad version of Drew Carey. I mean, he's just not the kind of guy that people are going to say, I want him to lead my state. So J.B. Pritzker is probably going to win in November. And the people who get the blame for that are the Republicans in Illinois. Go ahead.
Two last points. Newsom, I always ask everybody that this is our president right now, Donald Trump. Who are you going to support? So Newsom, the guy from Starbucks, he's moving out of California because they want to tax him $900,000. So it's a max exodus of people going into places like Texas, where my nephew lives, and they're liberals, and that ruined that. But on this last note, my experience, I worked with a guy, like you said, Inland Steel was a melting pot. He was a hard worker, too. His name, they called him the Cuban. I never knew his real name. And he told me Castro was bad. and he was so happy to get out of there. So here's another communist nation that's falling apart. And have a nice, safe ride home, Tom, and have a good show.
Thanks so much. And don't forget, I'm on tomorrow morning as well. So please call in. 845-1100 is the number to call. We've got another caller, so we'll go right to the call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, Tom. Good morning. How you doing, bud?
How are you?
Good. Just so you know, the calls are kind of going in and out on the volume, but I think I could hear you pretty good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Again, we are getting the new phone system installed today, so bear with us. We've mentioned for weeks that we needed to put a new phone system in, so that's being actually updated today, and it may preempt my return after the Munster Chamber show at 8:30 this morning. So we'll just have to wait and see. But go ahead, I can hear you fine.
Deedlow's been upgrading that studio for the last 15 years. This is par for the course. We've become accustomed to this type of amateur radio. No big deal. Hey, I don't know if I'm going to be able to call in when Marissa McDermott's on at, 7 a.m. you said?
It's at 7 a.m.
I've got a question. She's coming on to discuss scams, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to get her opinion on why she dismissed one of the biggest scams ever perpetrated on the tax-paying public of the town of Munster. When she dismissed the case of Sopko and Pfister, two of the biggest crooks that built that community in that school district for millions of dollars, they should have been found guilty, and she dismissed those cases. She perpetrated one of the big.
Let me just point out, though, she's not able to comment on cases that came before her. What she can do is, this is kind of a rarity for a sitting judge to come on, but her concern is that these scams that are being promulgated through text messaging and through email and through Messenger have gotten to a fever pitch. And as MX said, a lot of people are being taken by them. They look very authentic. And so she is coming on to talk about the fact that she got one herself, and the way people can check to make sure that if they do get an inquiry, it's legitimate. So that's what she can talk about. She can't talk about former cases. She just can't.
I'm curious how the taxpayers of the town of Munster feel about her coming on talking about scams when she was complicit in one of the biggest scams that affected that community.
A lot of people that were complicit in that scam, and the thing is that she ruled basically on. Based on the interpretation of the law. She wasn't, I know you and others like to blame judges for a lot of things, but a lot of times judges have to rule based on what's in front of them. So she can't, again, she can't talk about a case that was before her. She's just not allowed to. So I can't ask her about it because that's just something that she can't do.
Okay, I just figured I'd point that out. I think it's kind of hypocritical that she's coming in talking about scams when she dismissed one of the biggest scams on one of the communities.
Let me ask you this: there are some people that were involved in that were on that school board, for example, that are held up all the time as true heroes and icons and legends and all kinds of things. So there are a lot of people that were involved in that situation. I don't think those people knowingly knew what they were involved in at the time, but there are a lot of people that you can blame. And I think that when you look at the situation, you want to blame the judge basing her ruling or his ruling on the law. But I think you have to go back to the two individuals and the school board. They're the ones that really caused that problem. They're the ones that you have to hold accountable.
Well, why don't you give us some names? And nowadays, names seem to be a big issue. There's a lot of discussion going on with what's going on at the county, with people not showing up to work, still getting paid, people that have left their jobs at the county, that have signed a contract to earn $1 a year moving forward for forever, so they can continue to collect their benefits, their insurance, and so on and so forth. But nobody wants to mention any of those names. And why don't you mention these other people that may be complicit in the Munster situation? Who are these people?
the school board that approved those agreements. That's where you have to hold people accountable. I mean, I'm sorry, but we've talked about this issue before on these airwaves, but it was the school board that approved those situations, um, those bonuses that clearly were wrong. They ran against the what I would consider the public trust. If I serve on a board or a commission, I believe that I'm there not to represent my views, not to represent the person that appointed me or the persons that appointed me. I am there to represent the general public and describe it however you want. It shouldn't have happened, and it was done by the people who approved it. And if they said that they didn't know, well, then shame on them because they should know. Because before you vote on anything, when you serve on a board or a commission, you should know the facts. You should know all the details. You should do your due diligence. That's why you're there. I serve on the Hammond Plan Commission. I don't vote on something unless I know what I'm voting on. I serve on the Hammond Housing Authority. I make sure that I know what I'm voting on. I served for how many decades on the Chamber of Commerce in Whiting Robertsdale. I served on their board. I was an officer for many of the years. I always wanted to know what was I voting on. That's a responsibility of the person that sits on those boards, whether it's a not-for-profit or a public entity. And those are the people that you have to hold accountable. As far as the county, some of the county issues, I will do a show once I'm back. I'd like to do a show about some of the things that go on because I still think that our county government is inflated. There are way too many people. There's way too much waste that goes on, and I think that it's a great topic, and I will take that on. I've taken it on in the past. I'll take it on again. Absolutely.
Okay, and I just hope we mentioned names. I mean, you had a journalist on the radio yesterday, a quote-unquote journalist on the Tuesday morning show, and I'm not going to mention any names because they love to get gassed up. But when the question was posed to her, who are these people that are committing fraud at the county? Nobody wants to mention names. Everybody gets laryngitis when it comes time to call these people out. We're the ones paying these people salaries. You have people allegedly collecting $1 a year after they've moved on from their positions in some sort of a backdoor agreement, just in order for them to keep their insurance and keep their benefits. It's got to stop. It's ridiculous. And getting back to the situation with the school board muster, I don't disagree with you that the school board had some culpability, but those people weren't brought in front of that judge. The two people that perpetrated that crime were Southwell and Pfister, and she dismissed those two guys. That to me, if I lived in Munster, as a taxpayer, I'm up in arms anyways. But nonetheless, with that, I'm going to let you go.
Hey, thanks for the call. 845-1100 is the number to call. And do we have additional callers?
We do not.
All right. So I want to go back to a couple of things at hand. Obviously, scams. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in less than 30 minutes. But I also want to talk about this issue coming out of Whiting with the BP oil refinery. Again, folks, gas prices have risen because of the conflict with Iran. They're about to rise again because of curtailment of that refinery. When it goes on strike, it never produces at 100%. And because of the strike, it's going to drive up gas prices. And it sounds to me like we're digging in on this one. The release, the statement that was provided by Paul Goddard this morning, of course, Region News Source, you always can get the most up-to-date information from Region News Source, is that this is from Eric Schultz, president of USW 71, basically said, we presented British Petroleum with an offer today that included accepting several of their proposals, only to have them reject that offer just 4 hours after and serve us with a lockout notice. They continue to demand that we cut more than 100 jobs, accept pay cuts to nearly all positions, and give up our bargaining rights. That is just unacceptable. We are prepared to keep fighting for a fair agreement that protects local jobs, protects wages, and protects the rights of our members. Again, that sounds to me like the parties are pretty far apart. And The BP oil refinery is a major employer in Northwest Indiana, but it is a major cog in the wheel that supplies gasoline and jet fuel and other petroleum products to the Midwest. And it serves 9 states. So it can have an effect on the price of gasoline in Indiana and Illinois and Ohio and Michigan, Wisconsin, you name it. It covers the entire Midwest. And that's a big story. And we're also going to have people that are on strike. So that means that they're not getting a wage right now. And you know, it's kind of the same situation with this nonsense with the Democrats blocking the funds for the TSA and for FEMA, the Department of Homeland Security. They say that they're demanding changes to the Department of Homeland Security as it relates to ICE, but they funded ICE. The Democrats helped fund ICE through 2028. So ICE agents aren't being affected by the holdout by Congress on funding DHS, but the people who you rely on to make sure that your flight is safe, the TSA agents and FEMA. Walt brought up the damage that occurred down in Lake Village a week ago. Well, here we go. FEMA basically is working without paychecks, and that's wrong, and that's problematic. And I do think that there's some overkill too. My wife pointed out that this morning, Fox News was talking about TSA agents that are losing their cars and their homes. They've lost one paycheck so far. However, they did lose a paycheck. And yes, they'll get it back at some point, but that's very difficult for a lot of people to go without a paycheck. A lot of people do live paycheck to paycheck. And, if you put in the work, you ought to get paid. And I think it's just wrong. And I think it's time for the Democrats to come to the table. They said they didn't like Kristi Noem. Well, Kristi Noem's gone. They said that they wanted ICE agents to show IDs. My understanding from the news media is that the Republicans have agreed to that. There were a few other issues that they've asked for, and there's been some agreement on some of those. But you have people like Schumer who digs in and wants everything or nothing. And we've talked about it before. Chuck Schumer is a relic of the past. He's a dinosaur. Even his own party wants to get rid of him, and rightly so. But why is this guy still steering the ship? I mean, we complained about Mitch McConnell a year ago, and the Republicans got rid of Mitch McConnell and put Thune in. And so, isn't it time for somebody to tell Chuck Schumer that it's time for him to exit? He talks out of both sides of his mouth. He says one thing, does the other. Made claims under Democratic administrations that he said, we don't need to do this or we don't need to do that. And then he demands the exact same thing when it's a Republican administration. And it's just too much politics for me. And I think Chuck Schumer has to go. So love to hear from you. 845-1100. Again, at 7 o'clock, we're going to talk to Judge McDermott about some of these scams that are going on. And you heard MX call in. He had a friend that was taken for $140,000. And these scams are constant. You get these text messages, and some of them are very, they're very small amounts. It says you owe $3.90 balance for the Indiana toll road. And the first thought is, okay, well, I'll just pay the $3.90 and make it go away. Except that they get your credit card, or better yet, you give them your debit card, and then they clean out your bank account. And that's how quickly they move. So this is something that's hitting everybody. And if you've had an experience with that, please give us a call at 845-1100. As I mentioned before, I'm going to do tomorrow's show as well. So you get me for 2 days. And then I'm going to venture back from Florida up to the region. And we'll be doing the that was my wife in the background. We'll be doing the show from the studio starting next Wednesday, and either next Wednesday or the following Wednesday, I believe Bishop McClory is coming on. We're coming up on Easter, so he usually comes on just before Easter. And then in weeks after, we've got a number of guests lined up. I did speak to a woman who is running for Congress who appears to be the most likely Republican nominee. A lot of people in Lake County don't know her, but if you live in Porter County, You know her quite well. She's a Porter County Commissioner, Barb Regnitz. So she has agreed to come on, and we're working out the details of when. And of course, the invitation is always open to Frank Mervan as well to come on the show. We'll have a number of other individuals in the coming months. So lots of guests planned coming up in the next few months, because there's a lot of topics, a lot of discussion that I think you need to hear from individuals on. And don't forget, we'll have Lonnie Randolph and Dan Jernolk on as well in the next couple of weeks to talk about the legislative session from this past year. So lots of guests. I enjoy having guests when I'm back home in the studio to talk to and to really inform you about what's going on. So those are all things that are coming up. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB 1230 and 104.7 FM, and we'll be right back.
Life's biggest challenges don't come with a warning. When legal issues arise, whether it's a car accident, personal injury, criminal charge, or representing you before municipal boards, you need a trusted advocate on your side. At Westland & Bennett, we listen first because your story matters. We provide strategic, personalized legal solutions to protect your rights, your freedom, and your future. Peace of mind starts with a conversation. Call 219-440-7550 today for a free consultation.
Enigenberg Roofing offers roof replacements, repairs, and new construction. CertainTeed Shingle Master certified, our goal is to treat every customer and project with respect, courtesy, and honesty. Serving Northwest Indiana for over 63 years, contact us for a free roof replacement estimate at 219-365-8879. Mention this ad and receive a free upgrade to CertainTeed Pro Shingles. Enigenberg Roofing, 219-365-8879.
Do you like to work with your hands, creating something from nothing? Then think about Laborers Local 41. You'll get 432 hours of apprenticeship training, all while earning a wage with benefits and incurring no student debt. You'll travel to different job sites, learn tons of skills, and in a lot of cases, be the first one on and last one off a job site. It all starts at laborers41.com.
For over 100 years, Roofers Local 26 has been keeping Northwest Indiana dry and safe. Since 1919, our highly trained members have built a reputation for skills, safety, and reliability. With a 4-year apprenticeship and certifications in OSHA safety, first aid, and CPR, we deliver quality you can trust. When you need roofing done right, choose Roofers Local 26, protecting what matters most for over a century. For more information, visit www.roofers26.com.
All right, we're back. Okay, we're back. And it's a morning call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB. Again, lots of things going on. And I'd love to hear from anybody that's directly affected by the strike going on at BP Oil this morning. Again, it's going to affect literally thousands of people directly and indirectly. That refinery not only employs about 1,200 people, but it employs plenty of contractors that'll be affected as well. And sometimes those contractors pay just as much of a price as the people who work in the plant. So 845-1100, I'd love to hear from you about that. There is on the international news, let's talk about Iran. I'm a little perturbed about something, folks. Again, I'm not totally sure that the timing was right and totally sure about the Iran conflict, but I do feel I feel like the United States has been slapped in the face the last few days by our allies. So our allies always want us to defend them, right? NATO basically doesn't stand a chance against Russia without the United States. The British Navy, the French Navy, the German Navy are kind of a joke compared to the United States. And we rely on those countries, or those countries rely on us to protect them. All right. And again, reading this latest book that I'm reading, The Brink, Margaret Thatcher, how she basically maneuvered her way with the Soviets, letting them know that, she had an ironclad relationship with the United States. So she knew that she had no real authority, but the United States was there to back her up. And then we have this situation with the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. And just for a minute, forget about the fact of whether you agree or disagree with the decision to bomb Iran. The fact is that the United States actually exports more oil than it produces, but the cost of oil is affected basically by the international market. So when the cost of oil goes up, it drives up the cost of oil in the United States, whether we want it to or not. So we produce more oil than we use, um, but we're affected by the price of oil worldwide. So who is affected by the transits in the Strait of Hormuz? Well, first of all, you've got Russia, China, Japan, our European allies, our so-called allies. They're all the ones that are affected by oil from the Straits of Hormuz. There is some good news. Iraq is now pumping oil through a pipeline that's accessible from the Mediterranean, and Saudi Arabia did open up that pipeline that I mentioned last week that basically can pump about 10 million gallons, 10 million barrels a day, which is about 50% of their output. They can pump it basically down to the Red Sea, and tankers are now being diverted and they can start to load there. So there is some relief, but the idea of opening up the straits has to be done by the Navy. And Germany yesterday made a very disturbing statement. The German defense minister said, well, our Navy is no match for the United States Navy. Let the U.S. Navy handle it. And to me, that's a slap in the face because the Germans, especially, have benefited from, our good graces as a nation since the end of World War II. They were basically a starving nation after World War II. They caused World War II, and then they looked for us to bail them out. We did. We rebuilt their economy. The Marshall Plan, of course, saved the day in the late 1940s. We did all these things to help Germany, and now when we need basically German help because it would be better for us to have multiple nations involved in this, basically the escorts in the Persian Gulf. Germany says, no, we're not going to do it. Okay, Canada. All right. And once again, Canada would not exist without the United States. Its economy would falter in days. It has no real defense without the United States. And once again, Canada says, no, we're not doing it. Now, I agree that there is a certain amount of blame to be placed on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is acidic. He says stuff that doesn't always sit well with our allies, but I think our allies have to look deeper and say that the United States represents almost 350 million people, including Donald Trump, instead of just saying, well, we're not going to do business with Donald Trump, because the American people will be hurt by the lack of participation. And I don't know if I'm the only person on planet Earth that cares about this, but I do. I think that our allies never come to our defense. They never come to help us out. They were reluctant even after 9/11. To be honest with you, if you go back and look, they all spoke a very strong game. Oh, we're with you, and they did some patriotic commemorations after 9/11 and played the national anthem at different events, including at one of the cathedrals in the UK. But the fact is that when it came time to join with us in the response in Afghanistan, they were very reluctant, with a few exceptions. So I wonder how you feel about that, because to me, it seems to be very one-sided. And again, I may be wrong on that. So 845-1100 is the number to call. Again, we know we're going to be here until 8 o'clock, and then the Munster Chamber show comes on, and we'll probably be back at 8:30. But the good news is we're going to update the phone lines finally, and so that may preempt us from coming back from 8:30 to 9. So now's the time to give us a call at 845-1100. Lynette, let me ask you something. You're young. I'm sure know the history of our relationship with the Europeans. We've been there to bail them out for everything. How do you feel on this issue? They get their oil from the Persian Gulf, and now they want us to escort the tankers through the Persian Gulf, but they don't want to do it themselves. How do you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, it's unfair and unfortunate, and we're paying the price for it, but I mean, nothing good ever comes from any of this, so I'm not too surprised though.
That's a good way to describe it. Nothing good ever comes from any of this, and I think you're right about that. And again, it just seems to me that other nations who would directly benefit, by the way, from our actions, would want to jump on board and want to be part of those escorts. And then you have the German defense minister who says, "Well, our military isn't a match for the U.S. Let the U.S. Navy do it." Kind of like put U.S. men and women in harm's way to escort the oil out of the Persian Gulf so that it can go to Germany. I mean, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I like you, you're a good person, but if you say to me, "Hey, Tom, I want you to put your life on the line so that, I can get a tank full of gas," I'm probably going to be a little reluctant to go and do that. I mean, I'm not going to put my life on the line to get you to get you a tank of gasoline, and that's really what they're saying to us. 845-1100. We've got callers, so we'll go to the callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
How you doing, Tom?
How are you?
Okay. This thing with NATO not supporting the war effort in Iran. I think it was the old Secretary of State, Colin Powell, said, "You broke it, you own it." We went into Iraq. We were there for about 20 years, 25 years. Once you get yourself involved in these things, it's nobody's obligation to extricate you from them. NATO is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's basically European-centric. This thing in the Middle East, the Europeans have demonstrated they're more than happy to buy oil from people that don't really like them. So is it any surprise that they're not going to share their blood and treasure for this boondoggle in Iran? Not really.
Doesn't it bother you that they want us to do it? Okay, they're totally in favor of the escorts, but they want us to do it, and they won't participate. And the only ones who benefit are their countries, because we basically export oil. We don't import oil. We do an exchange of oil. There are certain light crudes and heavy crudes that we prefer, but overall, it's a fact that we actually export more oil than we use. So the people that are going to benefit the most from the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz are European countries and also our Asian allies, Japan, South Korea, places like that, Australia. So to me, it irks me that they're going to take advantage of us and want us to do it, but they won't help us.
Well, yeah, two presidents, Teddy Roosevelt and George Washington. Teddy Roosevelt basically said, "Walk softly, carry a big stick." His forte was the Western Hemisphere is America's playground. This is our backyard. What goes on in Europe? We were never stupid enough to get involved in their wars until World War I, when after the Federal Reserve System was created, we got involved in all these foreign entanglements. The other one, George Washington, again, he said, "Stay out of foreign wars. Mind your own business." This country should be actually an example to the world. We should be building that golden city on the hill that Ronald Reagan talked about as an example. We should take care of our own. And then the world is not going to be, brought under our control by our wins in our military. It's going to have to be by our example.
You're right about that. You're totally right. Let me just jump in. You mentioned World War One. World War One. When you look at why we got involved, it was basically because of British and French propaganda. There was really we had nothing on the line when it came to the war in Europe, We got involved. We got involved basically because the British and the French propagandists won the day over the German propagandists. All three countries were basically subjecting Americans to a lot of propaganda, a lot of false claims in newspapers, largely is the way it was done at the time, and the American people ended up and jumping in on the side of the British and the French. It wasn't like World War II. We weren't attacked. We weren't. They didn't declare war on us. There was none of that. It was basically we showed up. In fact, a lot of Germans at the time were like, they were dumbfounded. They were like, why are you going to war against us? We've done nothing to you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, this all started in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created, and you had offshore interests actually controlling American politicians. Was what got us into that thing. And again, we've gone from Teddy Roosevelt's walk softly and carry a big stick to U.S. Team America, cop to the world. I don't know how long it's going to take for the American. Well, first off, they could care less about the will of the American people. These politicians in Washington do what they want. But when are they going to wake up to the fact that they're gutting this country, bleeding it dry with all these foreign entanglements? In the meantime, back home, because of what they're doing with their policies, they're going to turn this country over to a bunch of left-wing radicals, and it's generational. The younger people coming up are not dumb enough to buy this hokum that's being sold to them. And unfortunately, they're going to go ahead and, if you look at history, they're going to swing to the left, and that is not going to bode well for this country in the future.
No, I agree with you. I think that that Trump basically totally misread the resolve of the American people. A lot of people that voted for Donald Trump voted for him because he said America first and foremost. And people said, I like that. We're not going to get involved in a bunch of foreign wars. We're not going to get involved in a bunch of foreign excursions. And then he goes out and does exactly the opposite of what he claimed he was going to do. We spend $1 trillion a year on the military, and we have a great military. We have the world's greatest military. But some of the things that we're doing, it causes me to question whether we should be spending those kinds of dollars to protect the Germans and the French and the British and all the others who basically, when it's time for them to support us, look the other way and say no thanks.
Right? Do you blame them? I mean, come on. If we're dumb enough to do it, why would you blame them? I can't blame them for taking us for the fools that we act like, I mean, this is like I say, this has been going on as long as I've been on this planet. We've been running around all over the world protecting other people from themselves. And again, like I say, if this country was really interested in converting the rest of the world to our philosophy, we would have stayed at home and we would have promoted Judeo-Christian philosophy that actually built Western civilization in our country, and the whole idea that this country was founded on, which is individual freedom and God-given rights, and use as an example of the world. The reason people come here from these other countries is because we still have some of that in this country, and they desire it. But running around with the military dropping bombs on people is never going to convert them. Didn't we learn that in Vietnam? I just don't get it. So
yeah, I agree.
Right,
I think there's some analogies, and we've gone after anybody and everybody, but the question is whether it's going to do the kind of damage that we think it's doing to cause a regime change. And even when there is a regime change, what's the guarantee that you don't get somebody that's worse than the one we already have? Hey, thanks so much for the call.
All right, then.
Lynette, let me ask you before we take this call, because it may be Judge McDermott. Do you want to take a quick break? Because once we have Judge McDermott, I don't want to take a break until we're done.
All right.
So it's up to you. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's take a quick break. You're listening to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. When we come back, we're going to talk to Judge McDermott about some of the scams that are going on. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you sausage curious?
Who's ready for Polish?
Big Frank Sausage has the very best Polish food in the region.
You had a mouthful of Big Frank sausage?
We have a full bar, dine-in, carry-out, delivery, and catering available.
I've had a mouthful of Big Frank sausage.
I've got a mouthful of Big Frank sausage.
219-378-9556. Smacznego i na zdrowie.
Who's ready for Polish?
It's the simplest expression. The smallest thing that changes everything. A smile. So easy. A smile lights it up. Apologizes. And welcomes unconditionally. Because the shortest distance between two people is a smile.
Thank you.
Strachan Van Til, where making life easier starts with a smile.
IBEW Local 697 electrical contractors bring the highest standard of electrical work to Lake County homes, schools, and businesses. From everyday fixes to once-in-a-lifetime builds, we don't just get the job done, we get it done right and up to the highest safety standards. When you need electrical work, hire the professionals who power Indiana. Powering Indiana, Lake County, bringing excellence to the job, creating a brighter future for our community.
It's the simplest expression. The smallest thing that changes everything. A smile. So easy. A smile lights it up. Apologizes. And welcomes unconditionally. Because the shortest distance between two people is a smile.
Thank you.
Strachan Van Til, where making life easier starts with a smile.
All right, we're back. And as I mentioned when we started the show this morning at 6 a.m., I invited Lake County Circuit Court Judge Marissa McDermott to call it. And Judge McDermott posted something on Facebook the other day to alert people to a scam. And I then reached out to her via text and said, gee, it's interesting. The scam message that she got was similar to one that I got about the same time, except that mine came through from an area code in Arkansas, and it was saying that I owed money to the Indiana Department of Revenue. And I had a little fun with the scammer and replied back and said, yeah, I'm sure that the Department of Revenue hired you to reach out to me on a Sunday afternoon from the hills of Arkansas, and they gave me a obscene reply. But this goes on all the time, and there are a lot of people that are being taken by these scams. So I believe this is Judge McDermott. Good morning. You're on the air.
How are you, Tom? Good morning.
Great to hear from you. Yes, I can hear from you. And let just make sure listeners know, Judge McDermott, you've been the Circuit Court Judge of Lake County now for how many years?
Yeah, this is actually my 10th year, Tom. I can't believe how fast it's gone. But yeah, this is my 10th year, and I'm still enjoying every day of it. Certainly, getting to see a lot of what's going on in the county as far as issues that we have, and trying to help people with those. But I do want to thank you for inviting me to come on today, because this text message scam appears to be very widespread. When I did post that message on Facebook the other day, I was surprised with the number of people that responded saying that they had gotten the exact same thing.
And again, they send you these text messages. They send, sometimes they even send it, make it look like it's on, official letterhead. And my first response always is, what do I owe? And then
right.
The rest of my brain kicks in and says, wait a minute, this has got to be a scam.
Right. The same thing happened to me. I got the text message about a week or two ago. I was actually at a judicial conference, funny enough, and this thing pops up on my phone, and the first reaction I had was like a mini heart attack, like, oh no, what did I do wrong? How do I fix it? And I think that's the reaction that a lot of people have. And that's, unfortunately, the respect that people have for the law and their desire to do the right thing is what the scammers are using against them. So, I got this message. I looked at it. Once I looked at it a second time, I realized, well, wait a second. there's so many things about this that are wrong. There's no Judge John Smith in Marion County, which is Indianapolis, by the way. There's no text messages that courts send to people with demands to pay. That just doesn't happen. There's no toll road around Indianapolis, so there's yet. I know that may change at some point, but yet there's no toll road. So all of it
like
didn't
that.
add
In
up.
yours,
And
in
then
your
I
message,
realized that there
it
was
said that you
effect.
actually had a toll violation for the toll road around Indianapolis. That was a great one. That was great.
Yeah, and so it had a helpful QR code that I could just scan and pay, and then be on my way if I'd like to. And of course, I didn't take the bait, but I realized that there are a lot of people out there. They see a judge's name on something. They see an official-looking document. They see a demand to pay, and their first instinct is, I want to make this right. I want to do the right thing, and then they ultimately get taken for it.
And again, I guess that the first step is be careful, right? Be careful if you get these text messages or these emails. And the second thing is there's ways to check to see whether it's legitimate or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody's going to come and arrest
Absolutely.
you if you don't pay it. If they send it on a Sunday, like with me, I can wait till Monday to check. They're not going to be knocking at my door, correct, Judge? Again, you have time to check for the legitimacy of these things.
This is just a new form of a scam that's been around a long time. I remember some years ago, there were people that were actually making phone calls and were indicating that there was going to be an active warrant, or that there was an active warrant, and then unless the person paid some outstanding amount, that they were going to be arrested and picked up on a warrant. Which of course, that would be very scary to get that phone call, and that was happening quite a bit a few years ago. I want to remind your listeners that there's a very easy way to find out if there are any cases that are open against them. So if they're getting a notice that they have to come to court, or that there's a warrant out or anything like that, all you have to do is go on Indiana My Case, and you can just Google that. You don't need the actual, just Google Indiana, MYCASE, Indiana My Case. It's a free open access to Indiana's court records. Just type in your name. That's really all you need is your first and last name. Unless you have a very common name, then you might need a little more information. And it'll pull up every case, every lawsuit, every traffic ticket, every anything that you have or have had, and you can look and see what's going on. And so if somebody's telling you that there's an infraction case against you, or somebody's telling you that there's a warrant out, you can check that yourself and make sure. And of course, you can, as far as tolls go, you can also call the tolling authority and find out whether there is in fact an open toll against you.
So again, there's a tool. It's Indiana My Case. You can go and you can check to see if it's legitimate. And again, being a judge, you said before, they're not going to send you a text message to tell you that there's a warrant out for your arrest, or that they're looking for you, or that you owe a fee. So that's the first step.
Right. Now,
and then you have time. You always have time, regardless of what the caller says or regardless of what the text says. You have time to verify that you legitimately owe the money.
Right. Now, courts are using text messages for notices of hearing. So that is a thing. You might get something that says, oh, you have a court date on this day. But what you're not going to get is pay this money by this day or else. That's just not something that courts send out.
Yeah, again, it's scary. As soon as you posted it, I noticed there were a number of people who, were saying they had gotten the same post. There were people who were saying that, they knew people who've been taken in on it. MX called this morning and mentioned about a friend of his that's been taken in on a scam. Actually, a couple of friends have been taken. There are just so many scams out there. And again, do your due diligence, check online, make a call, and don't believe the person that's calling. Actually, it's funny you mentioned about they used to call and they'd say that they had a warrant for your arrest. I was actually with a friend of mine, used to bring him on the air, John Sopo, when he was a police officer in Whiting, and somebody called him while he was on duty. He and I were standing on 119th Street. He was on duty. And he took the call, and the guy calls and says, we have a warrant for your arrest. And John played along and said, you do? And he's like, yes. And John asked him, what color handcuffs the guy had. And the guy's like, what difference does it make? And John says, well, I just like the shiny ones. And the guy's like, fine, we'll use shiny ones. And then John finally said, by the way, you realize I'm a white police officer, and the guy hung up. So it doesn't matter whether you're a police officer, whether you're a sitting judge like you, here you're a circuit court judge, but you still got one of these scams. So everybody's getting them, and just be careful, because once they get your information, especially if they ask for your routing number or your checking account number, that's a pretty bad sign too.
Yeah, and it seems like it's mostly, and I think this is just a fact, that a lot of times it's older people that are getting, everybody's getting targeted, but it seems like older people generally tend to be more inclined to respond to it and to offer that information because, they see something that's official looking, and like I said earlier, they want to do the right thing. If you're older and you're not sure, talk to someone that you trust, maybe a family member or a friend, and just say, hey, I got this. What do you think, before you act on it? Because, of course, you're going to want to act on it right away. You're going to feel like, oh, I'm in trouble. I want to make this right. But just take a few moments, call a family member or a friend, and ask them their advice, and they'll probably, point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. And while I've got you on the air, you and I have known each other, of course, for a long time, but I just want to point out to listeners, you're a graduate of University of Notre Dame Law School. You practiced for many years. My brother David actually used to say that you were one of the best and brightest attorneys in private practice in Northwest Indiana, which David doesn't say that too often. So that was always an indication to me that you were a great attorney. And then 10 years ago, you ran for circuit court judge and have served ever since. And it's great to have you on this morning. So you've built quite a career over the years, and I want to point that out to people.
Well, thank you.
Yes, you've got a well-known husband as well, but you certainly basically your career is your own, and I just want to point that out to people because you're a delight. You're a delight to know, and great to talk to you this morning. And I appreciate you calling in about this, because this is really scary, folks. These scams keep on going on. And as Judge McDermott said, especially if you're older, even if you're not older, just pick up the phone and call someone. I told you, Judge, yesterday that when we talked, one of the listeners was hit with one of these scams and called me. They had my phone number, and they just called me one night and said, hey, Tom, do you think I owe this money? And I said, absolutely not. Don't do anything. Wait till morning. Call and verify. And they were able to find out that was one of the toll road scams, and they found out that they didn't owe any money whatsoever. So it's always good to check.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. I think this is important information for people to know. And if you are someone that got one of these and you kind of laughed about it, just remember you might have family members or friends that got it and were nervous and wanted to reply. So make sure you share that information with the people that you care about.
Absolutely. And again, folks, think about it for a minute. A sitting circuit court judge was targeted. So anybody and everybody can be targeted in these scams. It doesn't matter who you are. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel like, I don't want to tell anybody just in case I owe the money, because chances are you don't owe the money. It's a scam, and don't be taken in on it. So, hey, Judge, thank you so much again for calling in on this. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and have a great day.
You as well. 845-1100 is the number to call. I mean, you heard from the judge. And Lynette, have you gotten any of these scam text messages?
Yes, I got one recently. I don't remember if it was a toll one or something about the DMV that they're gonna take my car. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. I got one of those too. I guess everybody sends them to me, but yeah, that's right. The BMV, you owed money and they were going to impound your car. Yeah, I got the same one. And again, it looks legitimate, right? It sends out an official looking letterhead. But these days you can make up letterhead very quickly. You can grab a seal, stick it on a piece of paper, make it look official. And there are some ones that I can remember from a few years ago. The judge mentioned about the phone calls, okay, and I said about the one that John Sopo got. Well, I remember another one where they were calling, and there was a friend of mine who was a retired priest. He had moved for a few months to take a vacation to Florida, and there were emails and phone calls going out that he had had an accident, and people needed to support him because he didn't have any money. And I know a couple who gave $2,000, basically $2,000 to help out a friend of theirs who happened to be a retired priest who had moved out of town for a couple of months, take a vacation, and got taken in the process. And so again, anybody and everybody can get hit with these scams, and just be very, very careful. Make sure that you know exactly who you're talking to. Make sure you verify, as the judge said, online that that it's legitimate. 845-1100, and we've got callers. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
How you doing?
And Mike, you are one of the people that have told me you've gotten scammed before. You've been the target of those scams as well. You've gotten some of those text messages, I believe.
A few of them, yeah. A long time ago, or it's happened to me. Anytime I do something on my laptop or the internet, and I have to apply a phone number, the only phone number I give them is my cell phone number, not my home phone number. Well, a long time ago, my wife, the phone rang. She comes in and says, "Hey, Microsoft's on the phone with me." I said, "Yeah, okay." So the guy says, "We need to remotely access your computer because we see you have, la-di-da-da problems on your laptop." And he's got an accent. And I says, "Hang on a second. Can you give me your phone number, extension number, and name? I'll call you back, and then we'll proceed from that point." He said, "Well, just let's go in the remote and I'll get it fixed." I says, "We'll fix it after I call you back." And he hung up. But then the toll road deal, yes, I got that one because I had gotten rid of my Durango and got another car. So I went to the Jewel over in Illinois to get my new iPass because they're different ones now. And all of a sudden I started getting these things that, I need to update my information and all this garbage. And I'm thinking, I just updated it. So I went and called the Illinois iPass, and I says, I'm getting it. Then I heard on the TV that it was a scam. But the biggest scam I've had was yesterday, or I've been watching this stupid commercial on TV, and I recorded it and read it and listened to it very carefully. If you got Part A, Part B security, call this number. In 2 minutes, we'll have a $900 cash card sent out to you for food, groceries, blah, blah, blah. So I got my phone set up, my timer set up. I called the person. They answered. They started answering mission. I says, "First, I have 2 questions to ask you. Number 1, is this only to get that $900 card? And number 2, has nothing to do with my Advantage plan." He says, "Well, first let's fill this out." I says, "Answer my 2 questions first." And she says, "Well, let's first go through the application." I says, "No, I'm asking you 2 questions. If you don't answer, goodbye." It's a scam. What it is they're trying to get you to fill out all this and send you to change your Advantage plan on your Medicare, But no, they're, and the thing is, they scam so many old people, and and then it's a shame that when there's disasters in this area or disasters anywhere, all of a sudden these scammers come out and rip these people off. It's a shame.
I'm
give me
glad
the
you
money.
brought that up because, Walt mentioned about Lake Village, and unfortunately, already there's scam operators who are hitting you up. It's always best to give money for those kinds of things to reputable organizations. If it's being collected by a local organization that you can actually reach out to and verify, it's a lot better than giving it to some organization that you don't know. You want to help out, but give the money to the right people so it gets to the people that you want to help.
And then another thing is, that's nice what they did for Lake Village because of the devastation that people had in that area and surrounding areas too, is that the local banks all got together and they got it all set up. And you can trust a local bank. But another scam that they've had, what was I just going to say? Oh, shoot. I'll have to remember. You know, I'm 67. I'm getting old. I can't remember too much anymore, you know. But I'm going to let you go in a second. But I said it yesterday, but I've got some good news. Guess what? Monday I went to my eye doctor associate, and they keep doing these tests. And I kept thinking, okay, when are they going to start doing work on my eyes? Yesterday I went there, and the doctor come in, and he says, good news. So what? Now we're going to start the surgery. Okay, so he explains everything going to go on and everything. So April and May, April they're going to do my right eye. May they're going to do my left eye. And it's going to be a long process and everything, but, you know, just everybody, you know, these scams, you know, it's like, you know, now we've had damage around here with the hail. You're going to have people wanting you to put money down to have your roof replaced.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
yes, I'm glad you brought that one up, Mike, because a year ago, there was a guy going door to door in my neighborhood, and he knocked on my door, and he said, we'd like to give you an estimate to replace your roof from the recent hail damage. And I said, well, I have a slate roof. You can see that. And he said, oh, well, but you know, we can get it covered. And I said, well, I'm not interested. And he said, well, your next door neighbor. And he gave me my neighbor's name. And he said, you know, he's having his roof done. And I'm thinking, really? Because my next door neighbor just spent a fortune having his roof redone a few years ago. So that night I saw him, and he said, no, Tom, I'm not having my roof redone at all. And it was a scam. It was a scam. This guy was going door to door, but he knew the names, and he made it sound real official that he was, you know, oh, yes, we're reaching out to you, and there's no cost. Yeah, it's a scam. Another scam. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for the call. I'm glad to hear about your eyes.
All right.
Keep us updated when the surgery occurs, okay?
Yeah, everybody have a wonderful, safe day, and be careful today because there's snow up there, not down there, okay?
That's right.
have a nice day.
Thanks, Mike. We'll see you in person next week. 845-1100 is the number to call. We have another caller, or do we want to do a break?
Let's take a break.
All right, we're going to take a break. If you're calling, stay on the call. And I want to get to a text message that I just got about NATO. So we'll be right back. You're listening to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM 104.7 FM, and we'll be right back.
Ogren Insurance, Hammond's oldest family-owned independent insurance agency, now in its third generation providing clients in the Chicago area with products from quality insurance companies to handle your every need. Regardless of driving history, Ogren Insurance can find the right coverage for you at competitive prices. To learn more about the insurance solutions and services we offer throughout Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, call 219-933-0076 or visit our website, ogreninsurance.com. We're located at 6929 Homan Avenue in Hammond, Indiana. Do business locally with someone you know and trust.
When your home needs help, the last thing you need is a faceless corporation or sales-driven franchise. At Myers Companies, we've been proudly local since 1951, born and raised right here in Northwest Indiana. We're family-owned and operated, built on trust, hard work, and integrity. And because we're family, we treat you like family. Your comfort and safety always come first. For HVAC, plumbing, and electrical done right, choose Myers Companies. Local. Family owned. Here for your family.
For a fast and friendly car wash, go to Easy Clean Car Wash. Open 7 days a week in 4 convenient locations: Highland, Griffith, Cherville, and Lansing. Free vacuuming, air freshener, and a towel with every wash. It's fast, safe, and gentle. For more information and hours of all our locations, visit myeasyclean.com. Also, see how you can wash your car daily with our $10 Ultimate Wash for only $19.99 per month. Give your car the best clean at Easy Clean Car Wash.
From the gas in your car to the heat in your home and the roads that you drive on, our work powers daily life. We are USW Local 71, the proud men and women of the Whiting Refinery. We're not just refinery workers. We're your friends and neighbors, raising our families here, shopping in the same stores, and cheering in the same stands. USW Local 71, powering the region, because we are the region.
Right. And we're back and just heard the ad from Local 7-1. And of course, they're on strike now, locked out at BP Oil in Whiting. And it does not look like a good situation to me. It looks like it's going to be a protracted labor dispute. And that's not good for obviously the men and women of 7-1. But it's also not good, it's not good for consumers in Northwest Indiana because it's going to affect the price of gasoline and fuel oil for a long time to come. So 845-1100 is the number. I want to go to a text message from Mark from Hobart. And you know what's nice is doing this show over the years, I've gotten to know so many people. Mark is one of them. And he brought up a very legitimate question and texted me and said, didn't Trump say he wanted out of NATO about 4 or 5 months back? And again, Trump has made some very acidic comments about some of our NATO allies in the past, but some of our NATO allies make those same comments about us. They've made comments over the years. You can go back to de Gaulle, for example, who at times refused to participate actively in NATO because he didn't like certain things. There were, Chancellor Kohl, Margaret Thatcher, even. We think of, Kohl and Thatcher as being, two of our most stalwart allies during the Cold War. And they were saying things at the time that were a lot different than what we remember now. And, reading this latest book, it was interesting to see some of the comments that were being made where, Margaret Thatcher, people made it sound like, boy, she was, Ronald Reagan's best friend, but she actually said that she didn't agree with a lot of what Reagan said. She didn't agree with a lot of what Reagan did until after the fact. So some of those tensions with our allies has existed for a long time. But one thing's for sure, when our allies get themselves in trouble, the United States is always there to protect them. When we get in trouble, the United States can't always rely on our allies. And that concerns me. It really does. And I think that's where, whether you like him or not, and I have some reservations at times about Donald Trump, but I think Donald Trump is right when he says that, our allies it's no surprise when they're not there for us. And I think he's right about that. Again, I wish that Donald Trump, somebody could put some duct tape across his mouth and keep him quiet for a while. I think it would help his reputation. It would help us globally, yes. But it's been said for well over 100 years that when it comes to our allies, it's not the leader, it's the people that we care about. So we dismissed in the 1960s and early 70s the comments that de Gaulle made, for example. We've dismissed comments that were made by the German chancellor, the woman that was in a few years ago. We dismissed her comments. We dismissed comments made by some of the leaders of the UK and Canada. And yet when our leader says something wrong or simply something stupid, our allies say, "Oh, well, there's the reason why we can't help you." And to me, that's not being an ally. We're joined at the hip with our NATO allies, for example, and we have done some great things over the years to bail those countries out and to protect those countries. If it wasn't for the United States, Europe would not be independent as it is today. There's just no question about it. The Soviets had every intention of just rolling right through Europe. Stalin wanted to do it, Khrushchev wanted to do it, Brezhnev wanted to do it, Andropov wanted to do it. They all wanted to do it. What kept them from doing it? The United States. And sometimes I think our allies forget that. And it doesn't come down to the person that's currently leading that country, whether it's one of our allies or the United States and the things they say. It should be based far deeper on that. Okay, it should be that, hey, we have a relationship with this country or that country, and we've had their back, and they should have our back. And so I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed that the NATO allies basically have have been so quick to dismiss the request for assistance in these escorts, especially given the fact that the the direct beneficiary of those escorts would be those European countries. We don't get most of our oil from the Persian Gulf. We get our oil from basically the United States and Canada. We produce more oil than we consume. So we're an exporter. Now there is some differences in the oil that we like to process. So we do a trade on the world market. We basically trade some of our crude for other crude. For example, the heavy crude that Venezuela provides is a crude that we really like to refine in our Gulf Coast refineries. So that's advantageous to us. We can sell off some of our light crude in return. But at the end of the day, we actually are an exporter of oil, not an importer. And the people that would benefit the most from opening the Strait of Hormuz would be European countries and our Asian allies, South Korea and Japan. And again, Japan wouldn't exist, South Korea wouldn't exist for a blink of an eye if it weren't for the United States. And we've not said anything negative about either of those countries. I did check. Generally, Trump has said good things about Japan and South Korea, and also Australia and New Zealand. And those four countries have said, nope, we're not going to do the escorts either. And then you have the German defense minister who makes a statement that sounds like it came right out of Donald Trump's mouth when he says, well, let the United States do it. They're the biggest Navy. They're the most powerful nation on earth. They should do it. We shouldn't have to put our lives at risk. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that. I think American lives are just as important as German lives. And if the benefit is for Germany, then Germany should be part of the escorts. 845-1100 is the number to call. Love to hear your views on this because it just bothers me. And also following up on the discussion that we had with Judge McDermott about these scams. There are so many scams out there. And again, you get emails, you get text messages, you get phone calls. I did look this up. If you answer the phone and it's a scam, it does not give them the ability to access your phone. However, what it does is it tells them that you're a legitimate person and they're going to target you and they're going to put you on all kinds of lists. And evidently what I just read on the internet during break is that scammers actually share phone numbers. So it's kind of hard to believe, but we all have the idea that these scammers are working out of their basement by themselves, independent, and it's not always the case. They're basically comparing notes and saying, yes, try Tom because here's his phone number. It's legitimate. And they sell off these numbers as legitimate targets and legitimate numbers, and it's just scary. So love to hear from you about that. Lynette, why don't we do traffic and weather while we're at it, since we're right at the bottom of the hour. I'll do traffic in Northwest Indiana. The roads look pretty good. 80-94, I-65. The toll road are all in good shape. So is Klein Avenue and the Chicago Skyway. Go across the line into Illinois. Bishop Ford looks pretty decent this morning, folks. And I can say that the Dan Ryan doesn't look as bad as it's been. It's not great, but it's not horrible this morning. I-57 looks pretty decent. 294 looks okay, although there are some slow ups, on 294 near Burr Ridge up to Westchester. So that area does have some congestion this morning, and that is going toward O'Hare. And then when you get into the city, the Eisenhower, the Stevenson, and the Kennedy are all extremely heavy this morning. So there you go on traffic. It's not a bad morning. Lakeshore Drive as well. Lakeshore Drive looks great this morning. So that's a good way to get into the city, especially if you're going downtown. Let's talk about weather with Lynette.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 25 degrees with highs of 44 and lows of 32. It's going to be breezy with flurries early this morning, mainly cloudy and not as cold. And later tonight will be mainly cloudy with a little rain late. And then tomorrow on Thursday, we'll be having highs of 53 and lows of 42 with a little rain in the morning, otherwise clouds yielding to sun. And then Friday, we'll be having highs of 67 and lows of 39. It's going to be warmer with times of clouds and sun.
And it looks like it's going to be warm pretty much through the whole weekend. I hope they're right. It's a little hard for I guess it's still very hard to predict the weather. We have the idea that with all modern technology and radar and everything else, should be easy to predict the weather. So I'll just give you the perfect example, folks. Being down here in Florida, my last couple of days, on Sunday and Saturday, it was supposed to be a washout. Saturday was probably the most picture perfect day that we've had in Florida. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was absolutely beautiful. It was warm. It was sunny. It wasn't even windy. And the prediction as recently as last Friday was that there was a 75% chance of thunderstorms and it was going to be cloudy and it was just going to be awful. It was absolutely picture perfect weather. And then on the other hand, they said today was going to be sunny and 72. And I'm looking out right now and it's raining. So you never know. 845-1100 is the number to call. Again, we're going to be on until 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we're going to step aside for the Chamber of Commerce show and then come back hopefully at 8:30 as long as they're not working on the phone line. So now's the time to give us a call. We were talking about scams before. And if you know somebody that's older, especially as Judge McDermott mentioned, there are a lot of people who I think become embarrassed, don't you, when it comes to a scam? They think that they don't want to talk about it with somebody else because they're afraid that just in case they actually do owe the money, that maybe that's the reason why they're not discussing it with someone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. And again, folks, there's no embarrassment. Everybody gets hit with these scams. And again, if you came to me, for example, and said, "Hey, Tom, I got this notice and it says I owe $3.90, like the some of the toll road ones." So what? I mean, even if you did owe $3.90, even if it was legitimate, it's not the worst thing that can happen to you, right? I mean, so okay, you owe $3.90. It's not embarrassing, but it's better to ask someone to make sure that it's legitimate than for them to get your credit card or to get your debit card or your bank account.
Yeah,
so just be careful, right?
Back when I was in PNW, we would get scam emails, not about money, but saying like, "Oh, our account's gonna be deactivated if we don't reply to this email," and it looked like a legit email from Purdue, and I had to email someone, and they said, "Yeah, don't click on anything like that. That's a scam email."
I mean, once they get in your computer, they get in your phone, people carry a lot of personal information. I mean, we all do. You've got apps that connect to your accounts. You keep your passwords and everything else on your computer, and you just never know where these things go. I mean, years ago there used to be these scams, and I guess they still exist, although I don't hear as many complaints about the scams where they go in and they take control of your computer, and then they want to get paid in Bitcoin to have to return your files. And it was very, very troublesome. I know that St. Margaret Mercy, when it was in Hammond, was hit with that scam. There were a number of businesses that were being hit with that scam in the early 2000s. And that one's gone away. But there are so many others. There's a scam, for example, that is really scary, where they go and they send you a check. And let's just say, for the sake of discussion, you would work for a company, and they send you the check, and it says, "Dear Lynette, we did an audit of our payroll system, and we determined that you actually were due an extra $12.50. So you get this check, right?" And so they name the business that you used to work for. They send you a $12.50 check. And if somebody sends you a check, you're going to cash it, right? You're going to put it in your account. And then they call you a day or two later, and they say, "Hey, Lynette, this is Tom from American National Bank and Trust or something." They have some fictitious name of a bank, and it says, "We know that you received this check for $12.50. It's legitimate, but the check was drawn on the wrong account, and we want to make it up to you, and we want to make sure that we pay your bank fees. So if you can give us the name of your bank, your routing number, and your account number, we will not only give you the $12.50, but we'll pay the insufficient fund notice that you might have. We'll take care of that. You won't have to incur that fee." Now, if you get a call and after you got this phony check and somebody called you and told you that, that sounds pretty legitimate, doesn't it?
It does.
And then what they do is that night they have your bank account, they have your bank, they have the routing number, and they go in and they clean out your account. And that's how they do it. And this is another scam that's been going on for a couple of years. And I've actually been well aware of it because I've had at least one client who was hit with this scam where employees were getting these phony checks, and they looked legitimate and sounded great. And they'd get these calls, and again, it was some nebulous amount, $12.50 or $8.37, some small amount, and it just says, due to an audit of XYZ company, we've determined that you are owed this additional money. You get the check, you put it in your account. It comes back as insufficient funds. It bounces, and then you get a phone call, and the person is apologetic and says, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We made the mistake, but we're going to take care of this. We need your routing number. We need your bank account because we're going to cover it. And we're going to cover that insufficient fund charge as well." And a lot of people fall for it. And I remember that I actually called someone at the Treasury Department, and they had to send those checks and said that this was a real big scam. It was drawn on a bank in New York, upstate New York at the time. And they were cleaning out people's bank accounts at night. So it sounded legitimate, but once again, it's not. So whether it's the toll road, whether it's the Indiana Department of Revenue, the IRS, that they call you and they say, "You owe money." Now, I know the IRS doesn't call people, so I'm pretty hard on those callers. And I say, "Hey, you know what? You're a scammer. I'm not going to believe you." I hang up on them. But at the same time, I'm so cynical about these scams that years ago, when I was chairing Pierogi Fest, I got a call from a woman who called me, and she said, "Hi," and gave her name. And she said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm calling from the Wall Street Journal, and I'd like to do a story about Pierogi Fest." So I was so sure it was a scam. I said to her, "Yes, right. Great job, Lynette. You sound very realistic. Who put you up to this? Which one of my brothers?" And I hung up on her. And I laughed, and I think I texted one of my brothers at the time and said, "Hey, good job trying to have that woman call and pretend she's from the Wall Street Journal." And the reason why is there's a backstory that my brothers said, "Well, the Pierogi Fest is growing and it's doing well, but you'll really make it when you're featured in a story in the Wall Street Journal." So this was this joke that my brothers would say. And then I get this call from this woman who says she's with the Wall Street Journal, and I hang up on her. And my brother responds and says, "I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't me." And then an hour later, I get another call on my phone. But this time I look at the caller ID and it says Wall Street Journal, New York, New York. And the woman calls back and says, "Hi, I called you earlier. I'm a reporter with the Wall Street Journal." And we finally ended up with the story in the Wall Street Journal about Pierogi Fest because I just didn't believe her. I thought it was just a scam. Again, why is the Wall Street Journal calling me? And the first call was from, her cell phone, and it was, Mary Smith in Rhode Island. And I thought, okay, it's just a scam. My brothers put some friend of theirs up to it to call and interview me, and they're all going to laugh about what I say. And then I find out it's legitimate. But you know what? When I explained to the woman that I didn't recognize the name, I didn't recognize the caller ID, she was fine with it. She didn't say, "Well, we're not going to do the story" or anything else. She laughed and said, "Hey, I get those calls too." So A lot of people get hit with these scams these days. And unfortunately, folks, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Is it time for a break?
It's around that time, yeah. We could take a break.
All right. All right, let's take a quick break. You're listening to the morning call. And again, I'm also on tomorrow morning. But tomorrow I'm on with Adriana, right? It's not you, it's Adriana.
Yes,
right?
Adriana.
So we'll be on tomorrow morning as well, doing the show. I know John Doherty's calling it or coming in at 7:30 tomorrow morning. And as I said before, folks, coming up before we go to the break, Bishop McClory is going to come on as a guest. Mayor McDermott's going to come on in the coming weeks. We're going to have a number of other individuals. We're inviting Frank Mervan. We're going to invite Barb Regnitz, who is most likely going to be his opponent. She's agreed to already come on, and plenty of others. So we'll have some guests, some informative guests, state senators as well, talking about the legislative season. So those will all be coming up in the next few weeks on this show. We'll be right back after we take these breaks. You're listening to The Morning Call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM.
It's gold rush time at Albert's. Oh, looky here! Oh, those are gonna fetch a pretty penny.
But who's gonna buy them from us?
I'll buy that gold from you.
What did you say?
I said I'll buy that gold from you, and I'll give you top dollar.
That sounds great.
It's gold rush time. We will see you at Albert's.
For over 140 years, the Central Midwest Carpenters have built our communities in Northwest Indiana. Are you ready to join the effort? We have long-term work, competitive pay, and the best benefits in the industry. We pride ourselves on innovative training and commitment to worksite safety. Earn as you learn as an apprentice. A solid career built on a solid legacy. For more info, go to carpenters.com.
Are you searching for a college where you belong? Calumet College of St. Joseph wants to know you and give you the support you need to succeed. Are you worried about how you'll pay for your degree? 95% of our students receive financial aid, including scholarships and grants. Need some extra help with your classes? You'll benefit from our small class sizes, free tutoring, internship planning, faculty mentors, and so much more. Come experience our accepting, supportive college family for yourself. Schedule your campus visit and apply at ccsj.edu.
Planting a tree, installing a fence, whether your project is big or small, NIPSCO reminds you to know what's below and contact 811 at least 2 full business days before doing any digging so that utility companies can mark the location of their underground lines. Contacting 811 is free and it's the law. Avoid possible penalties, costly repairs, or injuries. DIY or a pro, safety is in your hands. Every dig, every time.
All right, and it doesn't take long for scams to pop up. Here's a perfect example. I just got one, and it says basically, it says, "Hi, Selena. This is Laura. I'm planning a trip to Paris in July. I remember you mentioned before that you may also want to go. Could you please contact me?" Now, this is a phishing text message. So they send it out, and basically, most people would reply to that and say, "Oh, you've got the wrong number." And then once they know you're legitimate, they sell that number off to every ad firm, every marketing operation, every scammer. So the best thing is to delete it and report it as scam and nothing else. But I just got that while we were on break from someone named Selena who's looking to go to Paris this summer. I'm sure she's really going to Paris. And now I'm waiting for Lynette to jump in and say, "Yeah, that was my friend Tom, and she's going to Paris, and I just told her to text you," right?
No, I get those texts too, but I get called either Andrew or Brittany.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I got called Selena, so they really got me wrong. But again, we're talking about the fact that there are these scammers out there. And then while we're on the air, I get one of these messages. And what they're doing, folks, is they're looking to find out, are you a legitimate phone number? Because once they know you're a legitimate phone number, they're going to sell that number off to everybody else. And you're going to get call after call after call. And MX had mentioned about two people that he knew that had gotten messages, and especially Facebook Messenger. There's always messages that that pop up. I mean, there's just all kinds of crazy stuff that people send out there, and it's nuts. However, I will read this one. This is a legitimate message, and this says, "Good morning, Tom. You had mentioned diversity in Northwest Indiana. I'd like to ask you to mention the annual IDEA dinner Thursday, April 23rd at Wilbur Wright Middle School cafeteria from 5:30 to 8. The dinner is free and it's open to the public, and it's sponsored by the Munster Civic Foundation. And I'm going to follow up with this person because her father was Dick Hemingway, who passed away recently, and knew him very well, and I'll follow up. So I'm glad I can promote that event coming up at Wilbur Wright Middle School in Munster on April 23rd. So we'll talk more about that coming up in the next few weeks. But you get these messages, and I understand it. There are a lot of people that are, by themselves. They're looking for someone. They get messages. It says, hey, how would you like to strike up a conversation? They send a photo. The photo, of course, isn't of them. It's of someone else. And before you know it, they basically trap you and take a bunch of your money. And that's what MX was talking about that happened to one of his friends. And I know somebody as well that it happened to. And again, just don't believe things, people. See it in person, verify, verify, verify. As Judge McDermott said, there's actually a website that you can go to in Indiana, and you can go online and you can basically check to see if it's a legitimate situation or not. Don't just respond and assume that because it looks official, it must be official, because most likely if it looks official, it's not. So, just be careful. There's so many scammers that are out there that you just never know who's lurking and what's going on. And again, it's Indiana My Case that you can go to pull up whether it's legitimate or not in the state of Indiana. But there are, scammers. We're coming up on tax season. So there are scammers that will call you and tell you that they're with the IRS. License plate renewals. I think you mentioned that you got one from the BMV, correct, Lynette?
Yes.
Yeah, and I got that one as well. The toll road is kind of a perennial one. They make it sound legitimate. And again, if if nothing else, take a look at the phone number that it comes from. And, first off, if you see that it comes from an overseas exchange, if it has, like a number 26 or 22 or 23 in front of it, it means it's coming from overseas. The state of Indiana is not going to use anyone to collect any tax money from you whatsoever, any fine from a place that's overseas. And they're not going to use somebody from, the northern hills of Arkansas. I mean, when I looked at this one on Sunday, right away, I'm like, wait a minute, I know that area code. And I happened to recognize it from someone that I used to have to do business with. And I knew that it was kind of the northern Arkansas area toward Branson, Missouri. And I'm thinking, there's no way that the state of Indiana is going to contract to someone who's going to collect money, let alone on Sunday, to, text me and ask me for money. So again, just be careful. Did you watch the Oscars on Sunday? I'm kind of surprised that Mad Mac didn't call in yet, because Mad Mac is a kind of a movie nut, if you will. Did you watch the Oscars at all, Lynette?
I saw some clips.
I didn't watch it at all. I don't know. I'm first of all, I think that I'm at that point in my life where I just don't have a stomach for all the political messaging that comes about with those award shows these days. I mean, I don't really care what an actor's opinion is on current affairs, whether it's the U.S. or anywhere else. I think they're all phonies. I think they're all just paid mouths to talk about things, and it's proven that they are. Usually, when they take up a cause, they're being paid by somebody. So I kind of shy away from them. But my understanding is that one of the people that they left off of the tribute, they do a memorial, if you will, to people that passed, and they left off one of the biggest names that passed away in recent months, Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman passed away, of course, last year, but he wasn't covered in 2025 and he didn't get covered in 2026. And to me, that was remarkable that they left off Gene Hackman, an Academy Award winner, and just left him out completely of the show. And I mean, he's one of the biggest stars in decades that passed away, and he was left off completely. So I didn't watch it. I couldn't even tell you which movies were up, which movies won. I just think that it's kind of lost its allure. It used to be, in the 1960s and 1970s, everybody was glued to the Academy Awards. In fact, other networks would basically run old reruns because they couldn't compete with the Academy Awards. And nowadays, okay, somebody won an award. And maybe there's too many awards. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's just good fun. I like knowing who won an award, what movies won an award.
Does it make you more likely to go see that movie or rent that movie or download that movie?
No, no, it's usually movies I've seen, like Sinners. Sinners won an Oscar, and
So
I really enjoyed
tell me
that
about
movie.
that movie because I did see a lot of news reports about that movie. What's the basis of the movie Sinners? What is it?
It's mostly about black culture, the origins of the blues, but it's also a horror movie. So there's vampires, and it's a really interesting movie. It's really entertaining.
And that's what I didn't understand. So I heard it was about black culture and the origins of the blues, but then I heard it was a horror movie.
Yes.
How, I mean, I guess anything's possible, but to me, it's like it I don't know. It's almost like, the old what were the movies that were the takeoff on horror movies from the 90s and early 2000s with Anna Faris and some of the others, Scream, right? And it almost sounds like it's one of those um, you know mockumentary type movies. But you say it's good.
I loved it.
I know that Mad Mac, of course, who's kind of our movie expert, has talked about movies before. Let's take a quick call. Good morning, you're on the air. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, are you familiar with the Easter Bazaar put on by the Ukrainian Catholic Church in Munster at White Oak and Ridge Road?
And go ahead. Well, you got cut off there, so I didn't. We heard about the Ukrainian Catholic Church, but we didn't hear the rest of it.
Okay, they have Easter Bazaar. That's one of the nicest festivals. It's on Saturday, March 28th. It runs from 11 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's at White Oak and Ridge Road in Munster. They serve Ukrainian lunches, bake sale, Easter bread, Ukrainian sausage, unique ethnic and craft items, Ukrainian Easter eggs, and on Friday, before this event, they sell pierogies that are freshly made by Ukrainian grandmas, and it's some of the best pierogies around. They have like 4 different kinds. It's cheese, prune, potato, and kraut. And they prefer getting a reservation to pick it up, but anything they have more than they have orders for, they put signs in the window, extra potato, extra kraut, extra prune, extra whatever cheese. So I can highly recommend this bazaar. And on Fridays from 11 o'clock noon to like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or as long as it lasts, you can pick up at a dozen at a crack pierogies, and it's like $13 for 12, and half of that for if you just get 6 kind of thing. And
as I mentioned before, I don't eat pierogies.
Event.
I save them for people like you, Walt. So I hope you enjoy them. But it does sound like a good event. I will say this: the best Christmas market that I've been to in the region is the one held at Munster High School. And so if this Easter market is anything like the one that was held in Munster for Christmas, this is a must-see. It sounds like a really good event. And it's the 28th of March. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday, right?
Right. And you might even,
what time,
you want to get a preview. If you want to get a preview, drop by on Friday at around noon to around 2 o'clock. And they sell the pierogies in plastic bags, freshly made, and they're like $13 for a dozen. Could I talk about you raised a question about earlier about our NATO allies being tepid supporters when we ask them for a little support, kind of thing. You know, the reaction of our major European allies, the Germans, the French, the Brits, and so forth. This is why Trump wanted total control over Greenland, because he knew their record of not upholding their obligations. For example, the 2% GDP spent on their military. They're like 30 NATO allies, European allies, and they just a handful of countries that met that obligations, like Poland, the United States, the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They paid their 2%, but the big countries, shall we say, reneged on the 2% because they figure, push comes to shove, that we're going to protect them against the Russians, no matter what, no matter how indifferent their support is. But one thing I'd like to make is we're talking about the politicians and a big chunk of the population. But when it comes to their military guys, and I've met these NATO officers from the different countries. They are very much supportive of the United States. They would love to provide support and get involved, and not the least of which is to keep sharp and to be able to go to war with the backing of American air and naval power. Hey, that's Fat City for those European military guys. That they're a horse of a different color completely. They understand fully that if you want a friend, you got to be a friend, and they're not happy about their politicians dithering and dathering and what's going on now, where they're saying, "Well, this is not our war." Ha! Really?
Here, I'm glad
what are you going to do for oil?
You've had conversation with NATO officials who have a different view, because this book that I'm reading, The Brink, talks about how basically in the 1980s, these nuclear-free movement were basically marching on some of our military bases, and the Germans at least said that they weren't going to provide protection because they didn't want to get involved. And this one captain, I think his name is Trojan, says, he says, well, the only reason why I'm here and my men are here is basically to protect you, and you won't protect us. And the German laughed and said, well, that's the way we view it. You're here to protect us. We're not here to protect you. So that's actually in the book, and it's disturbing. But again, it's par for the course. We have this idea that the Europeans are always there for us, and they're never there for us. They haven't been there for us again back to the 1980s and even before. So, hey, appreciate the call, Walt. We've got another caller, so we're going to move on. Thank you so much. 845-1100 is the number to call. We've got additional callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, just a few things. You said we don't get oil from the Mideast, so really there's no reason for us to be there. Except we're protecting Saudi Arabia and we're protecting some other people.
We don't get our oil from the Middle East. We basically exchange oil, which is kind of an oddity, but we actually produce more oil than we consume.
Correct.
So you're right about that. And even NBC has pointed that out. They pointed out as recently as this morning.
If you had an ally, a supposed ally, who spied on you, who sunk one of your naval vessels, would you want to help him?
Agreed. I wouldn't. I would not.
Okay. That's Israel. Aldrich Ames was a spy in the U.S. government for Israel. If you remember the USS Liberty, they sunk a U.S. naval vessel in the Mediterranean. I think that was during either like the 73 war or one of those wars. They knew it was an American vessel. It was an American flag vessel, and they sunk it. That's Israel.
I think we've been taken advantage of our allies, including Israel, and you have a very valid point. Look, it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the Jewish faith. It has plenty to do with the state of Israel, who at times has been our ally, but at times has also sold us out. For example, Israel has had some very interesting relationships over the years with the Russians, and you don't see Israel taking our side or taking the Ukrainian side, for example. They've stayed neutral. Why? Because they have a lot of relations with the Russians, and there have been several situations where Israel has bucked the United States and not supported us. So you watch on TV, and their prime minister gets on there and proclaims himself to be a man of peace, which I think is laughable. But also he talks about being the staunchest ally of the United States. But as you said, that's not always been the case, has it?
No, that's all I wanted to bring up.
Well, no, I'm really glad, though, that you did bring this up because, once again, we have this idea that we've got all these great allies. And then when it's time for them to support us, they walk away. So thanks for the call. 845-1100, got another caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, you mentioned the Brink. Is that the one about the 1983 scare that we talked about before?
It sure is, Mont, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting read. I'm just about done with it. I think I have like 22 pages to finish. But when you read the book, the one unit that basically is in charge of storing nuclear or atomic weaponry, their shells, and he basically calls and says, "I need some help here. I need somebody to help because these nuclear free movement are basically surrounding our facility and storming the gates." And the Germans say, "Well, we're not going to provide any help." And he's like, "But we're here to protect you." And he said, and the response was, "Yeah, that's right. You're here to protect us. We're not here to protect you." And I'm glad that you called because you must have basically witnessed this kind of stuff firsthand.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I saw and heard a lot, because we integrated pretty well with the Germans going out on the weekends, and we were out in the countryside, so there was like really nothing else to do except go out to the local ghost houses and get to know people. And their attitude was more like we were an empire and we were like the Romans, taking over a territory. We didn't have that mentality at all. We were just there, to protect them from the Soviets. But some of the Germans actually thought, we were sort of like conquering them. We were colonizing them, which, in hindsight now, I'm seeing all the Muslim migrants in Germany. It's just, I don't understand it, but that was an interesting book.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of people that certainly sold out the United States too. When you read through that book, it does mention. I mentioned this last week. There's a chapter that talks about the nuclear-free movement and a young college student at Columbia Law School by the name of Barack Obama, who basically is out there, denouncing the U.S. Intermediate nuclear missiles in Europe. And the event that he spoke at was basically sponsored by the KGB. There are just lists and lists of people who sold out the United States, who sold out, every piece of information they could possibly sell off, including some of the codes. There's one, if you recall, there's one altercation where I think his name is Trojan. He's a captain, and he finds out that somebody basically has all the serial numbers of the weapons that he's there to secure. And they switched out the weapons, and he finds out that somebody actually has all those serial numbers, and that they've been turned over to the hands of the Soviets. So at times our allies, again, the idea that we're there to protect them, and then as you said, they have this disdain as if we're taking over them, because we're there to protect them. Just crazy.
Well, there were a lot of, it didn't happen where I was at in Baden-Württemberg, but there was a lot of, what do they call it? The Baader-Meinhof gang, the Red Army. I can't remember what it was actually called, but there was a couple of, highly leftist organizations like Antifa, essentially, that were targeting American soldiers at the time. There was a famous bombing in a Berlin nightclub that killed a couple of American soldiers. They hit the Frankfurt Officers Club one time, I can recall. So, and a lot of these people who were in these, radical organizations are now the leaders of the German leftist, parties. And frankly, I kind of figured back then that we shouldn't be there, that they should be protecting themselves. But again, that was back during the Cold War. So, I'm sure there were, reasons for us to be there against the Soviets. But, I don't know, over the last 40 years, I'm getting pretty tired of these Western allies of ours rubbing my nose and other Americans' nose in their steaming piles of social, progressive programs, cradle-to-grave programs. Hey, congratulations, you have
Let me ask you a
cradle-to-grave,
question, Mike. You served
insurance.
this nation. We again, as I said before, those of us who didn't serve, we owe you and others who did serve a debt of gratitude. You put your life on the line for this nation, and now you find out that our allies, the very people that you used to protect, that you were sent to Germany to protect, for example, the Germans say they're not going to participate in any escort of tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. How do you feel about that?
I think it's just more evidence that we should no longer be in NATO. We should focus on the Western Hemisphere. We should have Greenland. We should have it protected, have our northern flank essentially protected from the Chinese and the Russians. And I'm just going to go back to this. I hear everyone calling in. I hear, people saying, hey, we're too much in the pocket of the Israelis. I think I'm the only one who's been calling in and saying, look, we need to separate ourselves from the Brits, okay? We need to separate ourselves from that overseas banking empire that they have. And, our nearest neighbor, a neighbor that does 70% of their trade with us, is now thinking of us as the enemy and embracing Chinese communism. Mark Carney is actually a former Bank of England executive. They're all involved in this. This is why I think Trump has so purposely, put Starmer and Carney, and I saw him hammer at the Australian Prime Minister the other day, Albanese. These were all our staunchest allies, the Five Eyes. These were the Anglosphere, and they have actually turned out to be some of our biggest, I don't want to say enemies, but they have been our biggest backstabbers. While we've been trying to fight a war on drugs for the last 40 years, they've been making money from it by laundering all the illegal profits and stuff from these cartels. Venezuelan was laundering their money through Bank of England. 4 out of every $10 of illegal funds are laundered through the banks in London. And so I think this is purposely being done by Trump and his administration to just basically say, hey, we're done being your lapdogs, done being your security guard, handle yourself. And I think, what he's doing with the Strait of Hormuz right now and asking for help, just another nail in the coffin of this former, alliance.
Yeah, it doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth. It just feels like they've abandoned us. And again, as we talked earlier with other callers, the benefit of moving those tankers through the Strait of Hormuz is more for our allies than for us. And they want us to do it. They want us to put American lives at risk. To me, that just doesn't make sense. Hey, always great to talk to you, Mike.
Hey, Tom,
thanks so much for the call.
I want to share with you.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Morning Call on WJOB 1230 AM 104.7 FM. What were you saying? Binge.
If you're thinking of finishing your basement, installing outdoor security cameras, or your business has plans to break ground on a new project in 2024, Powering Indiana, Lake County is your source for the region's best electricians. With IBEW, Local 697 electricians, you're choosing the highest level of safety and reliability. Visit poweringindiana.org today and ensure your project is in the hands of skilled professionals.
Before Notre Dame Federal Credit Union, we were being charged various maintenance fees and various check writing fees for all of our accounts. And with Notre Dame, we don't have that. We have that true community partnership. We get interest based on all of our parish and school accounts, and the interest rate is really second to none.
Have you ever considered becoming an iron worker? Local 395 is now accepting applications for their apprenticeship program. Go to ironworkers395.com. Look under the training section, click on apprenticeship, and scroll down to the application. You must be 18 years old, have a high school diploma or GED, and you must be physically able to perform the work of the trade. Find out more by calling the apprenticeship school in Lake Station at 219-962-7675 or visit ironworkers395.com.
Fishing for a seafood meal without the stress or mess of cooking? Leave the work to the Strachan Van Til Seafood Department. For just $1 extra per pound, we'll fry, grill, or steam your fish with your choice of 3 kinds of breading. Try our fish and seafood dinners. Each includes a half pound each of seafood and fries, and a quarter pound of coleslaw. Want the freshest catch in town? Reel in the fish and seafood selections from your local Strachan Van Til.
Right, we're back. When Mont called, he mentioned the issue of Greenland, and I want to get to that, but I know we've got some callers, so let's get to the callers. And if we have a moment without callers, I'll talk about Greenland. It's something interesting that I saw on the History Channel the other night. But 845-1100 is the number to call, and we've got callers. Good morning, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to touch on a few things that it makes me laugh. Where all you hear about is the Strait of Hormuz. And you know as well as I, these people that didn't take a note in history or civics class, they probably couldn't find the Strait of Hormuz if their life depended on it. And now they know all about it. It makes me laugh. And it's 21 miles long about, but in actuality, only 1 mile of it is actually passable by some of these super tankers and larger vessels. I know
Very
that
narrow,
from
very
one of
narrow
my
passages.
cousins.
You're saying so it's very narrow.
Exactly. Exactly.
21 miles. I mean, basically, and the shipping lane itself is actually is as you said, it's only about a mile wide. The shipping lane itself.
Exactly. I know that from we're a big Navy family. A cousin of mine was a commander when Abraham Lincoln was first commissioned. He was a CIC officer. But anyway, getting back on now that area there, that choke point, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have a pipeline, an east-west pipeline, that right now it carries half of what goes through via shipping. Now, if all this we could have waited on this, they're in the process of doubling that capacity of that pipeline, where in no amount of time, that passage, they won't really need it.
So it's called the Aramco pipeline, and it basically can divert up to 10 million barrels a day from the Gulf down to the Red Sea. And then there's another line from Iraq through Kursk that basically goes out to the Mediterranean now. And so that's a smaller pipeline, but still it's a couple million barrels of oil a day. So you can largely divert from the Persian Gulf, and they're building additional pipelines that will make the Persian Gulf basically somewhat obsolete. You're absolutely right on that.
Right. So in other words, if we would have waited till that third phase went in, we wouldn't need any of this. But that's another story. And I just wanted to touch on, we're talking about Israel so much, Netanyahu. Netanyahu needs war. He needs war to keep him in power, just like a lot of our other politicians, because he's up for election, and if they stay in the war status as they are, he stays in power. And at one point, Netanyahu was a straight up guy, but as far as I've read and seen, he's been corrupted. Power corrupts, and so does money.
He's been investigated, and another one that is the same situation as Zelensky. Zelensky basically is staying in power only because they're in a state of war. And the minute the state of war ends, he basically no longer has claim to the presidency of Ukraine. So he's another one. He stays in power largely because they're in a state of war.
And in the meantime, it's funny, we're talking about all our so-called allies and how they play us. It's funny how every time there is something going on, other than maybe Korea, that's when they really got... China just sits back and watches and laughs.
Well, we have to look foolish to them, okay? Because first off, one of the things
absolutely.
that I've read over the years, some of the books that I've read, is that our enemies learn a great deal about our capacity to wage war and the technological abilities that we have through these skirmishes, through these wars. So, we worry about the Chinese learning about our missiles and learning about the different systems that we have. But the best way for them to learn is basically for us to use them. So right now we're giving away huge amounts of intelligence to the Chinese and to the Russians.
Exactly, and we're giving away our capabilities too. We're depleting our capabilities so we could fight Netanyahu's war. And again, it makes no sense to me. It's a big distraction big distraction. It's $1 billion a day distraction. My cousin, who was I mentioned earlier, just to put one of those carrier forces, not just the carrier. When they say a carrier, it's a whole. You've got frigates, you've got
it's an armada. There's destroyers. There's all these escorts. There's destroyers, amphibious assault ships. There are tenders. There are submarines. All of those things go along with the aircraft carrier. You're absolutely right. It's not like the aircraft carrier goes by itself.
And before a combat mission is even started, that's about $20 million a day. So, yeah. And in the meantime, are everybody doing their taxes or haven't done them yet? And you could probably corroborate this, Tom. People that they can only remember last week, 1/3, if I'm not mistaken, because I've got a lot of CPAs in our family too, 1/3 of our debt is due to that 20-year so-called war that we got into when we were looking for weapons of mass destruction. That if you challenge that or said anything against it back then, you were not a patriot, which makes me laugh. But that's $30 trillion, I think, and how many lives?
A lot of our debt comes. You're absolutely right. A lot of our debt comes from Iraq and Afghanistan. There's no doubt about it. And
1/3.
We should not. We again, you're right to bring it up at tax time. Although I will just one quick aside. I will say my taxes are not done, but I kind of did a preliminary estimate, and I did see some savings this year. Like a lot of people, I am going to see some savings this year. Obviously, I turned 65, so I got a $6,000 deduction for turning 65. So there's some benefit there. But getting back to your point, you're correct. A lot of the debt that we're saddling Lynette's age group with, for example, came from our ridiculous search for weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist, and for the debacle and the mess that we got ourselves into in Afghanistan, and especially the way we got out of Afghanistan. I saw a veteran just the other day, and he said, his name is Lee, and he said to me, I still can't believe that we left $40 billion worth of equipment and supplies in Afghanistan. Just insane. So you're right about bringing all that up. Hey, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Take care. 845-1100 with it. I think there's another caller.
No more callers.
Or did they hang? Okay, they hung up. I mentioned something. I wish I'd known that. I would have let the other caller stay on because he brought up some great points. Okay, a lot of the debt that we've amassed comes from some of these wars. It comes from the fact that we spend $1 trillion a year on our military. And look, I want us to have the most powerful military on earth, just like everybody else. But a lot of the money we spend basically is because our allies don't spend it. One of the things that Donald Trump got right in his first term was to demand that NATO spend more money because we were spending the money to defend them. And you heard Mont this morning, and you heard my comments about some of the books that I've read, where the Germans in particular, their view was, yeah, we're there to protect them. They didn't even like us being there, according to Mont. And we were basically there to protect their country and to protect them from being overrun by the Soviet Union or now the Russians. And they're not even happy that we're there. So that to me, that's just crazy. Our allies are not always allies. But I want to bring this up. I saw this story on the History Channel the other night and found it to be quite interesting. So I did some research on it. The whole issue of Greenland. The Danes who operate Greenland basically say that it's a nuclear-free area. And that's not the case, or that's not been the case in history. The fact is that in 1951, the Danish government gave us a defense agreement that gave Washington sweeping access to Greenland's territory and airspace, and essentially told the United States that what we did was our business and that they weren't going to interfere with what we did in Greenland. So between 1958 and 1965, just as an example, the U.S. maintained 48 nuclear warheads at Thule Air Force Base for Nike Hercules air defense missiles. We also had nuclear-armed Falcon missiles, and the number of those missiles actually has never been revealed. The show that I watched the other night said that we had 600 nuclear missiles, Falcon nuclear missiles, that were located in Greenland. And the reason why we largely abandoned Greenland was because we had this massive base that was built into the snow. But the problem is that the snow kept on encroaching back onto the base that we had built underneath the snow and the ice at a tune of about 6 feet a year. And they realized that it was all going to collapse. And that's why we actually abandoned the one base that we had. But we had about 600 nuclear warheads and missiles in Greenland. Now the claim is that we do not currently have any nuclear weapons in Greenland, but there's absolutely no proof of that. And the point is that we say we don't, and the Danish government says we don't, but they also said the same thing in the 1950s and 1960s, and the National Security Archives have been released showing that we had dozens, if not hundreds, of nuclear weapons stored away under the ice and snow in Greenland. So is Greenland important? Absolutely. Did the dust up over Greenland help erode the relationship that we have with our allies? Yes. But the fact is that we've always had some contentious relationships with some of these countries in Europe. We always have. I mean, we've not always been on the best terms with the Brits. Let's be honest. Go back 250 years ago. And the Brits weren't exactly our friends during the Civil War either. There have been problems with even Britain for a long time. They felt that we were too slow to arm them during World War II. They felt that we were too slow to come to their defense in World War I, and we had really no skin in the game in World War I. World War II we did, but in World War I we did not. We did not have a definite reason to be involved in that war. And so, the Brits have taken advantage of us. The French certainly have. I mean, read about World War II when the guys like de Gaulle, who was just basically claimed he was a general. He proclaimed himself this great general, and read about some of the problems that people like Eisenhower and Patton had with him, where de Gaulle would dictate to Eisenhower that he wanted to be at the lead of the march into Paris, and Eisenhower said to him, "Why? You haven't done a darn thing." And he claimed that he was commanding the French resistance, and the French resistance actually weren't commanded by de Gaulle. They thought he was a crackpot. They weren't supportive of him. And then de Gaulle turns around, and we basically we vanquish the Germans, we free the French, and he becomes the leader and sticks it to us during the 1960s and into the early 70s. He is basically got some pretty anti-American views. So there you go. There's another example. The Germans, I mean, my God, what we did for the Germans. After World War II, they would have starved to death. The Marshall Plan bailed them out. We've all heard of the Marshall Plan. It was amazing, and we did some amazing feats flying in supplies into places like Berlin and rebuilding the economy of Germany. And where are the Germans? Well, again, in the 1970s and the 1980s, the Germans basically scoffed at us because we were basically there protecting them. And they had disdain, as Mont said. They basically protested against us. They did nothing to protect us when the protests occurred near our bases. I mentioned that from one of the latest books I'm reading. I mean, these are documented situations. So they did nothing to help us. And the Germans when it came to the Russians recently, the pipelines, the Germans went and built those pipelines, and they were, basically all for dealing with the Russians. And now we find out that the Nordstrom part, I can't remember the name now. Somebody help me out on that. The pipeline basically that was sabotaged by the Ukrainians, not the Germans, which made sense. So again, once again, we've been taken advantage of, and this just continues to go around and around. Nord Stream pipeline. It just keeps on going in circles with our allies, and when we need them, they're not there. So whether you're in favor of what we did in Iran or not, whether you like Donald Trump or not, my point is that our allies do nothing to support us, yet we support them to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars a year. And where does this all end? Well, you know what? I can tell you right now, it's not going to change. We're going to continue to be the world's policeman. We're going to continue to spend billions of dollars for everybody else's defense. And we're not going to get the respect that we think we're going to get, nor do we get the respect that we deserve. So it's just a malicious cycle that doesn't end. With that, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back and we'll wrap out this show this morning. Looks like we're going to be okay, correct, with Comcast. Is that correct, Lynette?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll be okay. We'll be able to finish the show out till 9 o'clock. And then don't forget, tomorrow morning, we're doing the show again, beginning at 6 a.m. We're doing a Thursday edition of the morning call. So we'll be right back after these commercial announcements.
Looking for a hands-on career with real opportunities? Plumbers Local 210 is hosting an open house and Indiana statewide apprentice competition on March 18th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 2901 East 83rd Place in Maryville. Come see live demonstrations and watch top apprentices from across Indiana compete while showcasing the skills that power our infrastructure. Explore career paths in pipe fitting, welding, and HVAC service. For more info, call 219-942-7224 or email Shauna at plu210.org.
Tech Credit Union supports the essential role of union labor in building strong communities. That's why we offer hassle-free banking, financial empowerment, and a commitment to your success. Save for the future, handle life's challenges, and trust a partner that stands by hardworking union members. Tech Credit Union, the better option for you and your money. Visit techcu.org or call 800-276-8324. Tech Credit Union, supporting union families every step of the way.
Summer's coming, and Deep River Water Park is taking applications for all positions. We have jobs both inside and out for all ages that offer great benefits. Free admission on your day off for you and a friend. Free uniforms, paid training, make new friends, flexible scheduling, and more. To apply, just go to deepriverwaterpark.com and you're on your way to a summer of rewarding fun.
Deep River Water Park. It's simply splastastic.
Introducing Powers Health, a health system with a new name and a strong legacy of caring for families in our community. One with a tradition of advanced specialized services and a vision for the future. One with a commitment to medical excellence and compassionate care. Everything we do, everything we believe, Powers Health.
All right, we're back, and we've got about 20 minutes left. MX brought up this morning about the SAVE Act. And so there's a big push on right now. It all comes down to the filibuster, excuse me. And there is a push to possibly go to a talking filibuster, which would compel Democrats to maintain continuous speeches under Senate rules. Basically, the idea is to wear down your opponents. It's kind of the way that we all used to envision the filibuster working. So it'd be interesting if this actually occurs, because it will compel the Democrats to continue to talk constantly to tie the Senate up. At the same time, when the filibuster is going on, it ties up all other activities of the U.S. Senate. So it'll be very interesting to see if Thune chooses the talking filibuster or not to try and get this passed. Again, to me, the American people have spoken. Survey after survey, poll after poll shows that most Americans are in favor of showing an ID to go to vote. I think that it's just a real difficult situation for everyone. Just got a text message actually from Jed asking, "Hey, has there been much discussion about the BP lockout?" And the fact is, no, there really hasn't. I'm a little surprised. But as I said before, the BP lockout basically is going to have some real effect on the local economy, obviously, but it's also going to have effect on people's wallets because of gas prices. And I think that it's something that you all need to be concerned about. We all need to be concerned about it, and it's well beyond Northwest Indiana. That refinery has such an impact in the Midwest that you don't like the high prices right now from Iran. Well, the Iran situation might turn around pretty soon, and we might not have to worry about high prices from Iran, but we might have to worry about high prices from the BP oil refinery, because the last time there was a strike, gas prices did spike in the Midwest, and they stayed high during the entire duration of that strike. And does BP oil really care if they affect your pocketbook? And I don't think they do. They obviously are asking for some pretty harsh demands, asking for the elimination of over 100 jobs, wage cuts. I mean, those are some pretty hard-nosed requests by BP Oil. So, love to hear from somebody out there that might want to call in these last 20 minutes or so to talk about that strike. I mean, it's going to have a detrimental impact. It always has a detrimental impact on the people that work out there, and it also has a big impact on not just the 1,200 or so employees. It has an impact on the 7,000 or 8,000 contractor employees that work at BP. And so when you start to think about it, if you add in the contract employees and you add in the regular employees, you're talking maybe 10,000 families in Northwest Indiana that are affected by what goes on at that refinery. And that's a pretty substantial number, folks. So you're going to see an impact on, local spending. You're going to see an impact on the cost of fuel and gasoline. It is going to be, it's going to be a very substantial impact. And again, it doesn't sound like it's going to go away anytime soon. I've done a lot of labor negotiations over the years. I've negotiated over 100 labor contracts. You wouldn't get me even in the room for the one with BP, because when you've got one side saying we want to cut jobs and we want to cut pay, that's a real difficult situation. I mean, I've been in plenty of negotiations where there was a talk about one or the other, but when you want to do both, that doesn't leave much for the union. And that's going to be a difficult situation. So Union USW 7-1 has a real challenge on its hands, and they've got to dig in and they've got to represent their members. That's what they're there for. And then you've got basically they're negotiating against a company that's saying, we want you to give up jobs, okay, and we want you to give up pay and benefits. So what's left? I mean, what else is left when you go after a union on both those things? Again, been in plenty of negotiations where they want to eliminate jobs or they want to reduce pay, but to do both at the same time, that's a real difficult hill to climb. And I think that we have only seen the very beginning of this labor issue. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that something happens, but I don't think it will. I think we're in for the long haul on this one. The last time there was a strike, basically about 15, 20 years ago, I think it lasted over 100 days. And I'm afraid this one's going to last longer. 845-1100, we've got another caller. Good morning, you're on the air.
Hello, Tom. You said something real interesting. As we know, both of our fathers were in World War II, so you study that a little bit closer. and you were right about Britain. And what actually happened is, I've read it before, and it's in the movie Patton, where Patton got this Sicily first over Montgomery.
Yes.
And you're right about the rivalry. Now, I forgot what I was going to say next. What were you just talking about?
We're talking about BP oil and the
yeah,
strife
the
there.
BP, because you could tell I'm getting old. As a union steel worker for 50 years, and the decline of the steel mills, we went from 27,000 people to when I left 5,000 people. When I first got into the construction outfit as the Boilermakers, Inland Steel wanted our weekend schedule and our overtime. And by the time I put my 30 years in, they got both. What happens, but we were over a barrel. We're lucky that ArcelorMittal, and you could ask Hargrove, I actually snapped. Hargrove was a great president, okay? I actually snapshotted his comments that in 1999, when ArcelorMittal bought Inland, if they didn't and invest the money into Inland Steel, we would have went the way that Bethlehem went bankrupt and LTV. So at that time, from what I understand, I asked a lot of questions. From 1999 on, there is no more pension benefit plan. So we gave that up. But in my 30 years there, of course, they had us over a barrel. If you work, Saturdays was always overtime. Okay? And Sunday. But once we lost our weekend schedule, they could schedule a Tuesday through Saturday. Saturday wasn't overtime. And you had to have over 40 hours before you could start collecting overtime. They had a 7-10 schedule that I could never figure out. But in the end, we lost our weekend schedule, and we lost a lot. But you know what? I was riding off the tail end of the greatest generation, and I'm happy to have a retirement. And I've spent a lot of time out on the street being laid off from Inland Steel Boilermakers. It's very rough on the family. Of course, I support the BP union workers. But when I first went into the mill, it was a little city. They had cattle cars where you got in there and they took you to different jobs. But the thing, in the end, if the big decision was, it was around 86 when Inland decided to make Intech and Incoat to get away from the union, and it was in New Carlisle. But in the end, it still was New Carlisle. There was a lot of things that were done that made Inland Steel survive. And we gave up a lot. I'm telling you, we gave up a lot. And I feel really bad, really, really bad, because I know that feeling coming home and have to go to the unemployment line. Being in construction, I always got laid off before Christmas. And when people didn't come underneath me because we were shrinking, Inland Steel went down to 5,000 people. You were just happy to have a job. And I hope it don't end up like that. But I don't know why. When you hurt the economy of BP, now you've hurt the people that are going to go buy new trucks, that are going to support this economy around here. Now, as you know, in MX Cartoons, I posted this link, it's not my link, about the housing. People are losing their houses. Now, you go out and buy a house, and you got everything figured out. You got a spreadsheet, so much here, so much here. Then they throw this NIPSCO bill at you, and your NIPSCO bill is more than your house note. And through the new Green Deal scam, and I'm not blaming anybody, we're always trying to do better, that the new Green Deal scam made our and then them solar panels got all tore up from the wind. Now we got to pay for that. And one thing Trump did do good was he stopped that hydrogen hub. Now, as you know, Boilermaker, I put up many pollution systems, and some of them only last 2 years, and they shut the mill down like we did at 2 coke plants. And this hydrogen hub was nothing but a scam. And what was going to happen is we're going to put a pollution system on top of a pollution system on top of a pollution system, and we're going to truck this waste. Now, this is a good one. I'm a fisherman. We're going to truck this waste somewhere down south in a cavern, and we're going to throw this waste in a cavern, and then later on, why are all them bluegill and crappie belly up? So Trump did the right thing about getting rid of the hydrogen hub. He also mandated that you don't close down these coal stations, nuclear power plants. There's 2 of them. I posted that article too. So I know people are down on Trump and this and that. That man has his hands filled. He's got to unwind this new Green Deal scam. I mean, I know I was getting my oil changed, and there was an electric truck. I'm not going to say what, Ford, Chevy, but I sat there, and that truck was there the whole summer, and I was looking into it, and a battery costs $20,000. Now, if you ain't got the money, people don't even got the money for a snow shovel. How are you going to turn around and spend $20,000 for the new Green Deal battery? So I'm grateful that Trump is the president, and here we got this Obama giving $1.7 billion in cash, okay? He give it to the enemy. Would Eisenhower give $1.7 billion in cash to the Germany? What would Patton think? We're just all twisted up in this country, and people got to start knowing the history because it's repeating itself right now. And this NIPSCO thing, it's a total disaster. And now you got this. I truthfully, from the bottom of my heart, I feel bad for them union workers, and I know what it means to give stuff up. And I ended up at a sweatshop because they got all kinds of sweatshops.
Well,
but it's just
that something you brought up a very valid point. Okay, and you and I we've met for breakfast before, and we have plenty of restaurants in Northwest Indiana, and there's probably plenty of restaurant owners listening this morning saying, "Well, why do I care about the BP oil lockout?" Well, here I'll give you an example, because those people that visit your restaurants, the people that visit your stores, the people that shop locally, like you said. When you started off, you said, the person that was going to go out and buy a new car, they're not going to do any of those things because they're going to be basically not getting a paycheck because they're going to be on strike at BP. That has a big impact, and people forget that. It's not just the people that are going to be on strike at BP. It's all the other people that get impacted by that strike. And I really think that people need to realize that. Plus, again, the impact of that refinery on the Midwest. It's going to have a huge impact on the price of gasoline. Whether the price of oil drops to lower than it was before Iran or not, it's going to stay high in the Midwest because of that refinery. It's going to have a big impact on our economy. And I'm so glad that you called back because you understand this from experience in the steel mill. And I just think that a lot of people are missing the point about how devastating this strike could be on the Northwest Indiana economy. It can have a real impact, right?
Yes, they always say tough times make tough people. And you know what I love, Hessville? I try to keep it right, the alley. And in the end, I was always taught by my father, don't ever forget that you push the broom. And one of my biggest fears was all of us being laid off. Do I really want to venture out and go over the top of my head? I was laid off, 6 times, and I always found a job, but I had to work 10 hours to what I made at Inland in 8 or 11 hours. So every day was 12 hours at a fab shop compared to what I made at Inland. So believe me, I'm
These
100%
people, by the
for
way,
them
these people
at
that are on
BP.
strike, it's not like even the people that work for the TSA who I think it's criminal what's going on at the hands of the Democrats. But the fact is that at some point the TSA agents will get their back pay. You don't get back pay when you're on strike. There's no back pay. It takes you a long time to make up that lost money.
All right, let's go to something that really, really aggravated me, and I've got a mind like an elephant. Let's go back to the State of the Union address. Our illustrious congressman is supposed to be for steelworkers, but he was happy that he shook John Roberts' hand and Amy Coney Barrett that were against steel tariffs. Why do you go and, my steelworker buddy's seen it, and I'm actually trying to keep this side open for the younger guys that have families. And I post a bill like I did yesterday about the SAVE Act, who voted which way. But how could you have any conscience at all? And when Mervyn went down there and shake John Roberts' hand and passed up Kavanaugh was supporting tariffs for the steelworkers, went past, I forgot who the lady's name was, didn't shake Kavanaugh's hand and shake Amy Coney Barrett.
So it was Sotomayor.
Against
it was Sotomayor,
what?
Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Roberts. And the only thing that I could think of, and again, I don't want to defend anybody. I'm not going to defend Frank Mervan. The only thought that I had was that Mervan might have gone up to Roberts and introduced himself as the first district congressman of Indiana, not to talk about the tariffs, but to talk about the fact that Roberts grew up in Michiana. And so he actually grew up in the first district of Indiana. And then, he shook the hand of Coney Barrett because she's from Indiana as well. So that's just the thought. I mean, that could be the explanation. I agree. It seemed odd that he didn't bother to acknowledge Sotomayor and he didn't acknowledge Kavanaugh. And so that seemed very bizarre. I agree with you that little video snippet, if he ever comes on, I'd love to ask him why, but I'm going to guess that it was because Roberts was from Michiana, which is part of the first district.
Okay, let's say it was. I taped that so everybody could see that. If I see 4 judges in a row, and I'm supposed to be congressman,
with all 4,
and I'm
right?
supposed to
You're
have
shaking
class,
hands with all 4. So
I'm going
am
to
I.
shake all 4 hands. You know what? You said what you thought. But if he's going to be our congressman, I want him to shake all 4 hands. But it looked like to me, if you're supports the steel workers, you should be shaking the other 2 hands. Now, in that movie, Cool Hand Luke, remember Walking Boss? Now my brother taught me this. He's pretty smart. He's pretty sharp, a lot sharper than I am. The union carpenter. Mm-hmm. When Walking Boss shot that hawk out of the air, he shot it with a rifle. Remember they always said, "Why doesn't Walking Boss say anything?" And then when Walking Boss, he had them mirror glasses, shot that hawk with a rifle. Cool Hand Luke said he just said something. You know how hard it is to take a rifle and shoot a hawk out of the air? And what he was telling them prisoners, if you think you're going to run, I just shot this hawk out of the sky. So my brother taught me that. And when I see something, I dig a little bit deeper. And that MX Cartoons, they give their opinion. Then I make a final opinion what everybody thinks. But, you were right about that little war they got going on, the Britons and Americans. And Patton won that last one because he arrived in Sicily first. And it's in the documentaries.
And it was one of many. You and I know the history of Patton and World War II pretty well, MX. And that was, to me, that was just one of many situations where the Brits basically, they wanted to, they wanted to have prominence, for example. That was all about prominence, that Montgomery wanted to be the more prominent person. And it was Patton who got there first. And, it's one of many such incidents during World War II where the Brits basically didn't want to give us credit for what we did. They wanted to take all the credit themselves. And
here's another thing that was taken out of context. Here's another thing that was taken out of context.
Eisenhower basically wouldn't play the games. That was the good news. But guys like Patton basically stood up to the British and to Montgomery and could care less. So you're absolutely right. Hey, we are out of time, my friend. It was great hearing from you. Call back in tomorrow. Again, we're going to do this all again tomorrow, folks. So I sign off for today. School City of Hammond is coming up next. But keep it tuned right here all day, all week, and especially tomorrow morning, beginning at 6 a.m. for the morning call with Tom Dabertin on WJLB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. Thanks. Have a great day. Lynette, take care. We'll see you in person.